18 or below.
I know what you meant, yeah, 18
Yeah,
or below.
yeah, and that includes the chiropractor. But this committee's been tasked pretty heavily on a lot of different ways to go about it. And for this upcoming year, we have to have the plan turned into the state by August?
August 1st.
August 1st.
Yeah.
And so we're going to proceed with our Code Blue plan, and the way it's set up right now, but it hasn't been voted on and accepted, is take the 3 senior centers. So we've got Clearfield, Kaysville, and Bountiful, and use those as our Code Blue centers for this upcoming season. However, there's still a lot of pushback. So now the challenge is for each city to identify where we could possibly step up and help on a Code Blue night. And what that means then, we have to be able to at least provide a warming area. So it's got to have heat, obviously, and restrooms. And then the county will provide the beds, the staffing, the transportation of getting the folks from where they're currently at to the warming center, and also the next morning taking them back to where they were picked up. And then there's talk of making sure, just so that we can feel more comfortable about it, is the sheriff's department would have a deputy or someone on site at all times for that. So that's where it sits right now. More to come.
And it's not the county's decision, it's the Winter Response Task Force decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's been confusion in one city about that.
Right.
Like who's making the decision. It's in the law to be the Winter Response Task Force.
Which the county is a member of that.
One person.
Yeah.
We can't even talk about it.
I know.
Amongst ourselves, we can't, outside of a public meeting.
Right, yeah, so that's the biggest updates that I have. So with that, let's go ahead and go around the room with the council on any of your committees that you guys sit on. Any reports you want to give?
So UIA, Utopia, 65,000 total subscribers. Of that, 1/6 of those are actually in Layton. So we're almost at 10,000 subscribers, which is great for every subscriber, not just on the system-wide, but in Layton's obviously going to be a benefit to us. Almost a 43% take rate, which is the highest we've ever had, so that's been continuing to go up. There is a rate increase. There's a public hearing on the 24th of June. Utopia, UIA, going to increase the 250 megabyte and 1 gigabyte services by $4 a month. It's the first time they've actually increased any sort of rate structure since they started. And I was pursuant to our ordinance that we passed last time regarding any liabilities potentially to the city. I reached out to Alex and just said, my understanding was there was no liability to the city, it's just user fees that are being raised, it has nothing to do with any sort of debt obligations, and he responded that was true. So I'm going to take part in that public hearing. I'll vote for the rate increase when it comes. But there is no financial incentive or financial obligation additional to what we already have incurred for the city. And then Alex, would you mind, when we were talking on the phone, you mentioned, and if it's not the right time, that's fine as well, just the concept of what the revenues look like, and in the next few years, we're going to reach a point where debt service is going to be able to be, well, you can take it away.
Yeah, the hope is, the expectation is that within the next 2 to 3 years, the dollars flowing back to the cities for Utopia, from Utopia and UIA, the bill will increase significantly. So, as you know, for the last several years, UIA, Utopia, has been covering the escalation in the original debt that was given. So that number actually hasn't, the cities themselves have to come up with, hasn't increased. Because of the timing of some debt that's going off and some revenues that keep climbing very significantly, we think that number in the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years is going to start to climb pretty good, and then maybe looking at 40 to 50 to 60% of that original debt, not just holding a level, but actually cutting into that. So what the cities would be funding is actually less. Does that make sense? Because the revenues continue to be strong, so that's very positive.
So right now, our rate, our debt, we haven't had to incur the debt increase as it originally projected at 2% per year. So
Yeah,
you're, with that, would we see that decline or would we remain steady?
No, the idea is that rather than having us continue to pay that original base amount, it would be driven down significantly.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And the idea of the revenue neutrality was like the 2% or whatever, but
Yeah.
if we're creating additional revenues, then that means it frees up more money for us to use on other things. So it's working the way it's supposed to work, and it's been nice to see. I mean, we've been here for what, it's 5th year, and just in the last 5 years, I've seen noticeable changes. It's just good. I mean, Joy, you were there through a lot of the difficulties, but now we're actually being able to reap the benefits of it. So, good news. Thanks, Alex, for sharing. That's all that I have.
Maybe just a comment on that is that I was asked, no, this is about me, but about Utopia, the interest in it. There was a regional, it's called the Fiber Connect conference. It was in Park City a couple days ago, and they invited myself and Roger Timmerman and Wayne Pyle, he's retired now from West Valley, but was heavily involved in it, to be on a panel, and we talked about the Utopia story, and there was a lot of interest there about how do you make this work, and talked about the tough times and the good times and how we worked through it. And there was a lot of, Utopia is actually, in Little Utah, is the largest and most successful fiber phone network in the whole country. So literally, they're on a regular basis, there are people out of East, Midwest, California, every nook and cranny, calling us saying, how did you, they don't call me, of course, but how did you do this? Can you advise us and help us? And so it was interesting and very well received, so it's...
One of the reasons why the revenue projections are so good is we're going outside the state to Bozeman and Idaho Falls and places like that to provide the service. And really, we only get the benefit from that because you're not really incurring it. They're managing the build out, and we get the revenues back. So, yeah.
But that's because we're part of UIA, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
UIA is the fancy, but it's, those ventures don't cost us any money. We're just doing the provisioning and the management. We're advising them, so we get a percentage of that, but we're not hiring employees to take care of them. Those are all being taken care of themselves, so it's for very little cost. It's a significant revenue stream. Again, the idea is with that excess revenue then is just to, of course, keep building the network and keep it healthy and viable and an ongoing concern, but then to drive down these original debt payments for the original cities and to relieve that burden. So it's really right now working well. The subscribers monthly are very strong.
Is there any, just out of kicks, is there any conversation then with the actual ISPs as far as them increasing their rates as well? Because I know you got about 15 of them that you recommend to work with.
Yeah, I think there's 18 or so on the residential, and then there's a number higher than that on the commercial, so those ebb and flow. But yeah, these will, our rates...
Because usually if these rates go up, then I would think the others would too, so I mean...
They will, but we don't bill anybody, well, there's a $30 bill which is Utopia's bill to the customer. That is not what's talked about being raised, it's the user fee. So these fees would be imposed on in effect, for a purpose on the ISPs, and the ISPs will pass them. So
Okay.
there should
All
not
right.
be a double.
I was thinking that 30 goes to 34.
No.
Okay.
No, it's just on the
Glad I
different,
clarified that.
on the different tiers. And as was said by Zach, this is actually the first in 20 years, this is the first time that rate, that kind of base general rate has been increased. We have added additional tiers. You know, in the early days, you were selling 30 meg and then up 250 and so forth. Now we're selling, most popular is and some are 10 gig, now you're selling, and so we have a pricing structure for those that matches the service. But as far as adjusting those base rates, we've never done, which is remarkable in that industry. And it's been calculated, you know, because we see it as a community benefit. It's not about some profit motive. But anyway.
Okay, that works.
Just the excess revenues that are coming back to the cities, those are only for the founding cities, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, those that were part of the original debt issuance, yeah, were,
The ones who hung in there.
Yeah. And Bountiful, they decided to use Utopia to build their network, and at the end of that, they're gonna buy it?
no, you took, Bountiful model is a little bit different. It's an in-state version of what Zach was talking about with Bozeman and Idaho Falls to a degree. They wanted access to the Utopia network, but they wanted to control or own their own
Yeah.
network. And so we act as a contractor to them. They pay us, it's quite a bit more expensive for them than if they don't reap the benefits of membership, but that's how they wanted it. And so
They like to own their own stuff. don't
Yeah,
they?
they do.
that will generate
No.
quite a significant benefit. But it's good for them. It's good for them to, some of the other, well, I won't say.
When did Layton start with Utopia?
Layton?
Yeah.
It was in 2000, we were one of the founding members in 2004, so it's 20 years old.
Okay, next.
Yes, so I just have a couple of things with the CTC. Next week is the Utah Prevention Conference, and that's going to be in Bryce Canyon. It's going to be June 12th through the 14th. So all of the CTCs and the coalitions across the state go down to that conference. So I'll be going there. We also have a community board meeting on Monday, this coming Monday, and then a key leader meeting will be on the 19th. It was originally scheduled for the 12th. We can't be in Bryce and be at a key leader meeting. So that's been rescheduled to the 19th. And I'm just gonna piggyback real quick. Thanks for bringing these.
You're welcome.
So earlier today I was at a Boulder Way Forward Utah conference. It's a coalition that is working to close the women's equality gap here in Utah. There was a study and a report done a few years back where Utah ranks the lowest in women's equality in a number of areas. There's about 18 different areas, from wage to healthcare to childcare, just a number of things. And so there's a concerted effort across the state with counties as well as just statewide and different spokes to try and help close that, because when we uplift women and girls, we uplift everybody, like the entire family. And so there's just some information about that Maureen has brought. Thank you for bringing that. The only reason I'm talking about it is because I'm a Davis County co-lead for this movement, as well as I'm on the political and civic engagement spoke. And so sometime later in the near future, we'll probably ask to come and be able to do like a small presentation to the council about the movement and what it entails, what we're doing. But the whole premise is around finding groups, organizations, people who are already doing work in this area and connecting them. Because as you all know, we have a lot of things that we do in Utah. We do them very well, but when we do them in silos, we don't really move things forward quickly. And so this is an effort to try and get those groups together and work together towards a concerted effort. So that's a boulderwayforward.org, and I'll be bringing that, later on to speak on. But I just wanted to share that, and thanks, Lorraine, for bringing those.
Thank you for leading it.
Anything with the youth?
No, they started their push to get new members, and so they're doing okay. They're not having a great influx. I think they got 3 or 4 new members. They were interviewing them tonight. So I left after the meeting got into the interviews. But they're doing fine. They did make a choice. I think we give them some money each year, and instead of going to their conference every year, they're going to go every other. And the reason is they'll hold their own conference, because they felt like the conference they went to, it was starting to become redundant. They're doing the same stuff, talking about the same stuff.
That's why I tried to encourage them to attend Ryland, which is through Rotary. It's a very good
Well,
leadership one, but there was a conflict on the timing of it.
Yeah, but,
I think
and
that we
they
still
just
got
mentioned that if
2 of
they
them
did
that
it
were going.
themselves,
Yeah.
they can actually, like anything, they can talk about what their problems are and not what
The state of it.
everything else is worried about.
Good.
So,
And there's only advisory.
yeah, like I can see her, but I can't think of her name. She has a son,
Last name not, the first name is
Oh.
Laura.
Flora.
Flora.
Yes. Yeah, they do, yeah, that's true.
Parks and Recreation, very busy,
Yeah.
I can imagine. You probably all saw the mayor's email about the Voices of Liberty concert, June 30th, so plan on that, good event again, kicking off Liberty Days. I'll talk more in the main meeting, but, a full day of events, obviously on the 4th. Popsicles at 10:15, right, Dave? We can be up there. Leave at 10:15, so
Yeah.
if we can be up there at 10 o'clock, maybe even a little earlier, have a pep talk with all the volunteers, go over how we pass things out,
Yeah,
try
yes.
to make it to the end of the parade. So we've got, is that 2 more pallet jacks, more ice cream, or popsicles,
I upped it by 2,500.
so, thanks, Mayor.
So are we
And
going,
we'll use that.
are we going over to the Clearfield parade?
They're coming here.
Oh,
Let's
that's
just
it.
say we're, yeah.
People on Wasatch will finally get some.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
true, yeah.
Anyway.
Well, and if we have the instructions on passing them out too early on,
Yeah.
that will help.
Yeah.
I think too much went out early on and there's, spread it right.
Anyway, more information coming. Chad, did I hear right, George Wilson is terming out?
He is.
From the planning commission,
Yeah, he's
so 9
served.
years.
Yep.
So, and this Tuesday will be his last one.
That's right, yeah. That's because
That's
he's going to be
yours,
out of
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so we talked to him, we work at the same place. Good for him.
Yeah.
And then one other thing, real quick, it's summer, mosquitoes are out. And there's a lot of services, the mosquito abatement, being a member of that district. Layton City is one of the bigger requests for spray requests, so if you're seeing a lot of pressure, you can get online to the mosquito abatement website, or call them and request a spray if you're having a big event. We actually had the temple reach out, the church reach out during the temple open house. They were having a lot of pressure. And hopefully the district was able to help out with that, reduce the pressure, so.
I come by the house last night,
Yeah.
that's right. And I said, what is, Chris goes, mosquitoes. I don't know, that's okay.
It's not like when you was a kid, the fog machine. Sorry, Dave.
That was the DDT in my brain still, from following around the base. All the kids would run behind
So
that
small.
fog machine.
So small.
Okay, let's.
That's all.
Before we get going, let's get back on task here. But anyway, yeah, thanks you guys, and we'll look forward to the deeper announcements out in the council. Okay, well, tonight, we actually have with us the Davis County representative, our Commissioner Lorraine Kamalu and Ashley Young from the Animal Shelter. So Lorraine, welcome, and we'll turn the time over to you to kind of give us an update on everything.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. And I am just thinking about when we first had the results of the feasibility study. And I think we've got all the city managers together, remember, in 131 in the county building. And Ashley's worked very closely with city managers. I think maybe just with the building, there were questions. And I just remember Alex's style is to listen, 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 and wait, and I'll hear everybody else. And then he has a lot of, he has a lot of respect from his fellow city managers and a lot of tenure. And I mean, when you talk, we've had great support, but I just remember when you spoke with great authority about how some things are public services, because otherwise, we wouldn't, it doesn't work in the private sector, you know? Anyway, I just remember that, Alex, I don't remember if you remember that, but it helps when people understand. So that's kind of why we're here, actually, is to give the update and to be proactive about it, and you can ask some questions. First off, though, this little sheet is a nice thing to continually give you updates. No, the portfolio one.
Oh, on who's.
Just who's doing what? And I did not used to be the supervising commissioner with animal care, about a year and a half. We shuffle occasionally, and so I became that about a year and a half ago. And so Ashley and I, we're in pretty close communication, and it's really nice. I think we're each communicators, and so it's a good fit. So I'm really glad I get to be with animal care. You might know that animal services is typically a city service, or cities have to figure it out on their own, but in Davis County, we're told we have the best model in the state because it's just not been that way. It doesn't make any sense to have every city figuring it out, right? And we're the smallest county in square miles. And so there's a long history of county and the cities doing this together, and the county having a department. So Ashley's been in her position about 4 years now. I heard you say that yesterday. And I think the county, and especially Ashley, mostly Ashley, has just really wanted to get better and better and better. So now she's recognized around the state for doing such a great job in this area. It is her field of interest and background and experience. It hasn't always been that way with a director, past directors. And in fact, she gets asked to speak on the national level now. So let's see, we are going around to all the cities. You're our 7th one. There's 15 cities, so we're almost, tomorrow will be more, or not tomorrow, but the next one will be more than halfway, to give you a chance to hear the update. Ashley will give that update. There is the last handout. She has this handout, which is the blue and gray one. She'll talk about that, but then the other final one, right before we started the city tours, the Deseret News did a huge article on how challenging animal services have become around the nation. And it has been. I mean, from the time you came in, I think have been some of the most challenging times with the pandemic and the dog tsunami kind of connected to that pandemic, and just the numbers of animals. And we also have had a county growing in population, and so typically the numbers of animals with strays and needing services tracks with the population. And so a lot of growth, a lot of need. And it's not just us, it's around the nation. So that article was great to give some context. So I'll let Ashley give more of the specific update.
Thank you, Commissioner. So again, my name is Ashley. I'm the director over at Animal Care, and I've been there since 2021. So I kind of came in mid-pandemic, which was really a lovely time for all of us, I'm sure. But why I'm here today, we're working on building a new shelter, and this started immediately when I stepped into my role in 2021. We were in the middle of a feasibility study, and that feasibility study looked at our operations, but also our need for a new shelter. And so we assessed remodeling our current shelter, which was built almost 50 years ago. And if you haven't been up there, I know a lot of our established mayors and city leaders have toured the building, but if you haven't, I invite you to come because it's pretty rough working conditions and living conditions for the 4,000 animals we take in every year. So with that, the feasibility study said that we did need a new building. Our current building is around 11,000 square feet, and they recommended a building near 32,000 square feet to accommodate our population and the number of animals we have for the build out of our county. And so we've had many meetings with all of our commissioners, and we are moving forward with that building. We currently have RFPs, requests for proposals, which are closing on June 12th for both construction and architecture on that. And we do expect to break ground near the end of the year on that building. So we are moving forward. The county's funding it. It is an estimated $15 million building, highly, highly specialized, much like a hospital, with all the maintenance and waste and all that fun stuff, airflow that we have. Sound is a huge one, yeah. So we are moving forward on that. The county is paying for that $15 million building. We're not asking for anything from taxpayers or cities. out of capital funds. And so we're just kind of charging ahead with that because it's so needed. So that's kind of the update on the current project, but then we do intend to go through truth in taxation this year for animal care. We're in our operations, yeah. We're in our own fund. We haven't seen a tax increase for animal care since like 2017, so it's been quite a while. And we're trying to add in all these services. We're moving into a new building that's gonna require more staffing and just more cost to operate because it is much larger. So we're looking at a tax increase of about $1.5 million, which breaks down to about $11 for the entire year for a typical household. And we expect for that to carry us for the next 5 to 7 years, because that's kind of what we've been told as good tax policy. Small tax increases.
Somewhere between 5 and 8 years.
Yeah.
Avoid big ones.
And so we are just going to all the councils to make sure that you're aware of where we're at with the building and our plans moving forward to make sure that there's good, clear communication on kind of what's happening over at Animal Care.
So the big question was the location. Are you building in the existing site or did you move it?
We're building in the existing site, so that was part of our feasibility study
Skyscraper.
as well.
Skyscraper?
Pretty
Not
much,
quite.
no.
You should go up. You don't have that much ground up there.
Not a lot of
Yeah,
room.
yeah, so we are planning to build on the current site. We have a front pasture that we think the building will fit in with some work. But we are planning to stay there. We did some time studies and with our 89 and the West Davis corridor, it's 15, 20 minutes to get to either end of the county for our residents and also our animal control officers. And also, we need a pretty big piece of land. Land is incredibly expensive and we want to be able to stay somewhere central, which makes it even harder to find a spot where we can go. So we are planning to stay right where we're at. We're doing 1 story. We are currently in 2-story and it just does not work well for the animals. Moving animals through the building is tricky, and my office is upstairs, my deputy's upstairs, and we're so disjointed from the staff, and it's just not ideal, so.
Save quite a bit of money to just be able to build on site, obviously, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have to buy this expensive market.
So what are you gonna do with your large animal? Where's that gonna be?
So we do have a barn out back that is staying there in our current plan, and then we do have another pasture that's up along the mountainside that we intend to keep as well. But as our county continues to grow, we're seeing less and less livestock come in, and I would estimate, in the next few years, I hate to say this, but we're not gonna have a lot of livestock in this county, unfortunately. I think it's unfortunate. Yeah.
I'd ask.
No, I mean, it's valid. It's very valid.
The original concept from the people who did the feasibility study and with a kind of a rough look at cost, I don't think it was around 17 million, I feel like. And honestly, our staff has worked really hard, and Curtis too, to just bring it down and just really be smart about this build. And we try to build for the next 50 years, which is build out of this county population, so.
What was that square footage again?
32,000 is what we're going towards, and we're currently in about 11,000.
And that building that is, everyone's seen now for animal care, was built when everything was a kill facility. So it's just not, when you think about the difference of what it is now and what's supposed to be now, that's a lot to do with the size difference.
Anybody else have any questions?
Does the state have any, they don't, no funding? They'll pass the law and no funding.
More used to unfunded mandates.
Can't we ship the animals to the state?
Salt Lake County's fortunate because they've got Humane Society. They're in a big, and one of the newer kinds of
Nicer
modern,
buildings,
yeah,
yeah.
like the way that you work with animals now, not just kill them. And so we've toured that. Ashley's seen all kinds of different places, but they don't, I feel like they just go to rural to help more now. And so, yeah, they're not, sometimes we get asked about, would they be interested to come up here, but
So one
they're
more
already too close.
quick thing to ask, and I'm just asking these questions because I know it's good for everybody to kind of understand, especially when we're streaming. So nuisance animals, how do you handle those?
What kind of
Nuisance calls,
nuisance are we
so
talking
whether you're
about?
raccoons and, that people can trap and, do they call
Deer.
it?
Yeah,
and
yeah, so deer
carcasses laying around.
go more towards Department of Wildlife. Our officers, we don't have any winches in our vehicles or anything to actually like get the animals off the road. And then raccoons, we stopped interacting with raccoons right before I came on, like in 2020, 2021. We were picking up around 4,000 raccoons every single year. I only have 10 full-time animal control officers. And so we weren't making it out to dog bites and dogs running at large, vicious animals. Instead, our officers were going and killing raccoons. And it's kind of the same conversation we have with community or feral cats. There's a reason that raccoon is there. There's usually food source, water, somewhere for them to be housed. And so if we're just continuing to take those animals and euthanize them, more animals are going to move into that environment. It doesn't really solve any of the problems. And really one of my focuses with Animal Care of Davis County is being proactive versus reactive. And so that is one of the things that we did hold on to through 2021, that we are not responding out to the raccoon or skunk calls anymore. And that is something that we're asking the residents to handle, just like if they had a mouse problem or a bird in the attic or in their fireplace or anything along those lines.
Okay,
Is that a good question?
Okay.
We get that question?
Yeah, that's the only reason why I wanted to ask.
When this is done, adoptions, is that part of the, and would you be reaching out for volunteers to help care for the?
It's all about the volunteer program. I'm so
Well,
proud of this.
let me start with adoptions.
Yeah.
So we currently do adoptions. Our live release rate, so that's the amount of animals that leave our shelter alive, is 95%, which is one of the highest in Utah. Like, we're doing really, really well. But the reason that we're looking at this new shelter, I'm sure there's several of you that have been here to our shelter, but our lobby is really tiny. And so we often have someone who's like adopting a pet, their new family member, whatever, and is so excited right next to another family who maybe is euthanizing their pet or surrendering their pet or dealing with a citation that maybe our office has issued. And so we're really looking to enhance that experience by having different lobbies that these individuals can use to interact with, to kind of split that up a little bit, because it can be really awkward in our little front lobby, and we're always so busy, which I love, but it's rough. So we continue to grow and expand that adoption program, and that's how almost all of our animals leave. Commissioner Kamalu touched on, like, Humane Society doesn't really want to pull animals from us because we are doing really, really well. We've kind of put ourselves in that box, which is great, but like also, so they're going to a lot of rural shelters that don't have that traffic and don't have those citizens that walk through their doors. And then volunteers, we currently have a very robust volunteer program. We were awarded the You Serve Utah Gold Award. We are the only organization in Utah that holds that currently. So we have volunteers in all the time, and I think right now we're at around 900 active volunteers. So the community is there and engaged, and we have people that are walking dogs and taking them home for foster care and coming in and socializing with our cats and helping us like clean the kennels, which is always, I'm like, but you can volunteer to clean our kennels? Yes, please come. So we have a lot of volunteer opportunities and engagement in that way. And of course, we want to grow those programs through that new building. Because right now they have like no dedicated space. They have a little closet where they clock in their volunteer time. That's so loud in our dog kennels. So.
Great, thank you.
During the dog tsunami, kind of related to the pandemic, they were like 2 dogs per kennel, and oh man, it was
That's when
really
Rotary
awful.
came up and helped you walk a lot of them and get them out. But,
And then we also have Layton PD come up and like take pictures with our dogs. It's really great. We loved it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you guys giving us the update.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for having us.
Okay,
We'll see you soon. Reach out anytime.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it helps.
Thanks for taking care of the animals. 'Cause we had a discussion last year about animal control, and just appreciate it.
Yeah, usually I say it's a public health service and it's a public safety service,
Yep.
which is good to keep in mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can love animals, but those are things that the humans need.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. We sure appreciate you. You're a great city and council.
Thank you. Yeah, you want it here or you can go to the middle. You'll be in the middle. Okay,
Hello.
we'll go on to item number 4, which is our presentation of the victims
Yes.
of Crime Act. And,
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, you guys. So Isabella's gonna update us on this, and go ahead and make your presentation.
Thank you. Yes, I know I just came a couple of months ago. I actually needed to come 2 times. But just wanted to update you guys that the housing program, we was granted $40,000 for this year, and we actually used all of it. I want to say towards the end of May. So right now, we're not able to help for this month until the new fiscal year comes, which will be in July, which will be granted another 40,000. So it's, obviously it's there, it's a need. In the beginning of the year, we actually ran through it pretty fast, so we had to take a step down a little bit and see who the victims needed more help with. So that was a great service that we gave to them, so just wanted to update you on that. Wanted to talk to you guys about, hopefully I brought it enough, about a new program called Safe at Home. I don't know if that's something that you guys have been familiar with. It's a new program that just came out last month. And Utah actually was very slow on having a confidential organization. So this is primarily for victims who are moving, transitioning to a different location, and they don't want the perpetrator knowing where their homes is. So what they do is that they go to this program here, it's called Safe at Home, and they apply for it. So they actually get like a fake address to give to them, and they forward all of their mails. They actually can change the driver's license address as well. It's like legally done. Passports, driver's license, anything that they put address, protective orders, they all put that address there. It's, I think, up for 5 years, and then they can renew it again. It's a very new program. Other states, I think what they said to me was 27 states, and I could be wrong, that has already had a program like ours. Now we just, again, it was a little slow to catch up, but now we have it, and we already have a lot of people requesting to have this service. So since being here, that we started in May, the second week the program launched, we already had 2 victims that have been wanting to use this program. I'm certified, as well as a part-time victims advocate is certified, so we can actually request those applications and have that process go a little bit faster. There's not a lot that they ask. They only ask, if they're moving within 90 days, already have moved, and kind of having supporting documents of saying, that this is a legit victim that we're trying to help with. Any questions?
So they're in their home and they need to move because they need to move. So they access this program, they move somewhere, but they're given a license and all for another address.
Correct. So this is people who are planning to move in the 90 days. They don't have to be moving at that time, already have moved, but they don't, the perpetrator doesn't know their address. And then they file everything out. The thing about, because it's still a very new program, the cost. Now it costs money for passports, driver's license. With us, with the program that we have with the housing program, we can actually help with those fees. So that's something that is becoming a little barrier for most victims in that sense. But yes, to answer that question.
Thank you.
Do they, I would assume this is just open information, but when you move them, do you move them like out of the county? Or, I mean, it seems kind of stupid to move them, next door.
Yeah.
But do they, so.
Yeah, good question. So they actually don't move them. They're the ones that find places
Oh, they
to live.
find a place.
Yes.
Oh.
So all over Utah they can find.
Okay.
Again, this is only strictly for Utah. So if they're moving outside of state, there's resources that they can find if that state also has a program like ours.
Are you like a consultant for that? I mean, because when people are under stress, sometimes they don't make the best decisions. I mean, they know they have to move, but you want to make sure they move to a safe place, not just move.
Yeah, they trained us how to do the application, what's required and everything like that. When I talk to victims, now that it's a new program, we have pamphlets out for them too. We kind of talk more about the situation. It's not as easy as just to up and leave, because everything is so expensive, but we try to help them and give them as much information as what we have. And that's something that we give to them now, saying, if you are planning to move or wanting to move, but are scared that the defendant will have access to the address, now this is a program. That kind of
You still have the program where, if they gotta move now, tonight?
So we, for our housing program, we have a term called emergency shelter. So we will help them go into a hotel for a couple of days, very, very short temporary situation. But we try to connect them with Safe Harbor.
Safe harbor.
But Safe Harbor has been having a very high volume victims coming in that are actually sending them to the cities. And we've been having a lot of them. So it's been an issue that we're trying to see what other resources we can have to have them sent to like a place that is kind of hidden. But Safe Harbor is always the first one we turn them to.
So you said you had 2 right away, and then since then have you had?
Since then, we haven't yet. I know when they told us when we went to our conference that they were launching, 2 weeks after that is when they emailed everyone that wanted to know when the program started. So that's the only way that they contact. Now it's like word
Word of mouth?
Word, yes.
Okay.
So hopefully we get some more, and because we have situations where it's come up, well, what do I do if they have their address? You know, I'm like, great, I don't even know, there's not a program for that, but now there is. So just to kind of keep informed that this is a possibility for them.
You guys do a really good job in there of helping a lot of different people in various circumstances, so this just kind of adds to it.
Yes.
Thanks for being on top of it
Of
Well,
course.
and implementing it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's, I don't want to say it's one of the few, because it's not in a lot of reasons, but the stuff that you guys do affects lives differently than the way the city affects lives, you know, and it's nice to have somebody that smiles like you do.
We work as a team, Dave.
Well, I know, but it's, people that come to you aren't in the best, you know.
Yes.
They need people that are nice.
Thank you, Dave, I appreciate that. I did get notified from our grant for the next grant funding. They're actually cutting our budget by 20% in the housing department. So you might be seeing, it's not guaranteed yet, but that's where they're kind of.
So your 40K is getting cut?
Yeah. That's where
And
they're.
we're already
projecting.
short.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you ran out.
Yeah, we ran out, but just something to let you guys know too. But that's pretty much the update that we have. Yeah, any questions, last minute?
I don't have any questions, just again echoing thanks for you and the program that we can offer to folks. Again, at that conference today, domestic violence is huge, and I know it's not a topic that people want to talk about and they want to hide from it, but it's very, very real in our state and in our county. So thank you for continuing to bring it before us. And I'll talk to you about some other resources that may be available.
Perfect.
Thank you for
Thank you so much.
coming and talking to us tonight.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, let's go on to our number 5 on our agenda, which Tracy's gonna present our budget for the fiscal year 2024-25.
So tonight, thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have a public hearing on the budget. And so most of these slides were just informational for you, but the one that we do need to cover is this one here. I won't spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to go full screen. Can you read that? So the main changes is what we need to discuss. And so changes to the tentative budget, it's proposed that we reduce the transfer from the general fund to the capital projects fund related to the EOC dispatch building and replace that $500,000 in funding. Thank you, Steve. Yep. $500,000 in funding with funding from the Emergency Medical Services Fund. So as we analyze the call volume that the dispatch center receives, it seemed only appropriate that the EMS fund, which is an enterprise fund and carries a fund balance, contribute to that construction. And so we're proposing to make that switch. Also, you've probably heard about this, but the state retirement has an issue with Tier 2 where the employees would have, the general employees would have to pay a portion of their retirement, And there's really no way for us to get around that, other than we're proposing to add an amount in the budget to pay a stipend, so that if an employee is with us all next year, at the end of the year, June 30th, we'll calculate up how much that employee was required to pay under this scenario, and then we would issue a stipend to them to reimburse them for that. So that's what the 32,000
And
covers.
that's only the tier 2, not tier 1, right?
Right, yeah. And it's only the ones that are participating in the hybrid plan as well. So those that participate in the full 401K type of option, it doesn't apply to them. It's the ones that is the defined benefits side of it. There's about, I believe, Jamie told me 80 to 100 employees that affects. So it's a pretty big group, because
Yeah.
most, a larger and larger percentage are falling into the tier 2 program. Another thing to proposed change is to add an emergency manager position and to fund that through the Emergency Medical Services Fund. That will add about $129,000 in expense to that fund in personnel, wages, and benefits for that position. Also, there's one crossing guard that's proposed in the tentative budget. This would be a second one for a place at Angel and Weaver where there's a crossing there. And then the final thing, which Steve will actually cover more of, and we've talked about it a little bit already, the sewer master plan. I think they call it wastewater master plan. But to increase that rate 8.2%, and that's in the recommendation is 8.2% a year for 3 years. So this would just be the budget effect for the first year of the rate increase that's proposed. And I'm estimating that that will generate about $915,000 in additional rate revenue in this budget year that's there. So those are the main items that have changed since we presented the tentative budget on May 2nd. Some of those had been discussed previously but didn't make it into the tentative budget. I don't know if any of you have any questions regarding these items.
Can you talk about the emergency manager position? What would that, obviously it sounds like it's new. Is this a new position or is this an additional?
I can let Alex speak to that, sure.
Okay.
So that was a position that historically has been handled by the Management Services Director. So years ago with Jim Mason, and you don't know Jim, but he did an excellent job. And then most recently was handled by Steve Garside, who had, because of his law experience and his tenure with the city, did a great job with that as well. With Steve leaving, we don't have that skill set at a professional level in that department anymore, so we let it just kind of sit for a while and let it play itself out and see how things work. And originally I had talked with the departments about refunding that position, but we held off, thinking we could kind of, for at least a year, do a little bit of patchwork, and Jamie and her team would handle certain aspects of it, and then we could get fire involved in some other aspects of it. A lot of these are housed either independently or they're tied with fire departments. But because of the impact to the general fund at the time, when we talked about, we had our all-day budget meeting, I was concerned about recommending you guys decide that trying to build that fund balance back up in that general fund. And so again, as we began to look at the EMS fund and found out there are some monies in there, and there's the healthy amounts that can be used at this in addition to the funding for the dispatch building. There's some opportunity there to not have to wait another year and maybe look at doing that. So we visited with the fire department, and they think that would be good. So they have what they want to do is they have some needs at a captain level that can be absorbed. This is not, it's a full-time position, but they would have different responsibilities. They would have some strictly fire responsibilities, and then also have some emergency management responsibilities. And they have several existing employees in that captain level rank, which we think it needs to be, that have some academic training and certifications in it, as well as practical experience. So based on having this, the revenue stream that's in hand, we felt like it was important to have that discussion and recommend that, and make sure we don't miss some things. It's an ongoing, evolving thing, and there's a lot of administrative work as well as just paperwork and applying for grants, but also facilitating trainings and scenarios and coordinating with other agencies. It's emergency management is one of those that we try to be balanced about it, but it can consume everything if you let it. We don't look at it that way. We try to be very strategic and smart about it. But that's the reason it did come out before. And like I said, as part of looking at the other uses for EMS, we explored that and thought that makes perfect sense. Again, to use that. So that's what I thought.
Under the fire department.
Yeah, the idea is to put that under the fire department, and
They have PIO responsibilities, this person? Because that was Steve before.
yeah, right
Let's see.
now,
Who does that now?
I think Clint would be our main,
That's me.
yeah.
Face for,
for
a face
general
for
things.
TV would be good.
So if we had we're in an emergency situation, I think that would be a logical thing that could supplement with Clint or whoever else we decided, but they would certainly have a prominent role in any emergency types of issues and coordinating, but
So with the
Not in
CERT
general.
program, I know right now Natalie's done a great job kind of managing that, but technically that should fall under this person then too, right?
well, yeah, what she's doing would be a subset
Yeah.
of that. I don't know how they intend to structure, but it'd be all.
Because I know
close
back in the
coordination.
beginning, Jim started it and worked it very
Yeah.
good that way, and then I know Steve did, but then transferred to Natalie,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, that'd be close coordination.
Yeah, that's a good program, I mean, it runs right along with what it's doing.
And then the crossing guard was based on, we actually do a survey. It's not as technical as a survey, a warrant study based on putting in a traffic light, but there is a standard that has to be met by state law in order to legally or legitimately justify a school crossing guard. And so in the interim between the tentative and the final, Chief Swanson came and said that based on a study, I think that Steve and his folks had helped do, there needed to be an additional guard at this location to meet the criteria, and so that's why we've added that. It wasn't something we anticipated before, but there's a need, the volume's there,
Yeah.
and both of the kids
Is that-
and cars, so,
Is that for kids going to, is that Heritage?
Yeah.
yeah.
What,
So
I'm
where's
curious.
the, sorry,
Go ahead.
where's the traffic coming, where are the kids coming from? Because I know we have 2 crossing guards just north of there at the Parkway.
The Hill Farms.
Coming out of this, to the
Oh,
south.
then, okay,
Yeah.
next door.
And the
Makes sense.
sidewalk, I know that intersection doesn't necessarily have a sidewalk, what,
No, it doesn't.
how are we gonna, that's gonna be our next issue then, right?
No.
No, it's-
We're
I think
just
it does.
trying to-
It does. No,
On
the
the south
other,
side?
so Weaver Lane is in 2 different sections.
Right.
The Weaver Lane that goes down to Heritage Elementary,
this is
so it's
the
right
same.
on the corner.
Yeah.
So there's, that's all sidewalk.
It's in the
Okay.
traffic signal. On the
From-
south side of the
from
road,
the-
on Weaver Lane, it's.
On the south
Weaver
side.
Lane is,
Okay.
yeah, Weaver Lane is of
Yeah.
industry.
Angel is, yeah.
So, I see the 500,000 going back to the general fund, 500,000 going to use EMS funding. So tier 2 employee, emergency manager, and additional crossing guard, that's additional funds spent, right? And then this 915 is what you're expecting to get in revenue back.
Right.
Yeah.
For the first year,
Yeah.
so then annually.
And that would be that annually, but the next year will be theoretically double that, right?
Right.
Put another 8.2% in there. On the tier 2 employee, the consensus seems to be across the state from the various entities that are affected is that the legislature is going to, that was a missed, I don't know about unintentional, but it was a missed opportunity, and I think it's on the radar now, so they think that's going to be fixed next year, and that's why we're not proposing a long-term solution from the state retirement people's direction. If you implement it in a more formal way, then you can't undo it. And so some cities have chosen to do it a different way, or make their employees pick it up. And we suggest that if we can do it in the form of a stipend, that's kind of like a bonus or a one-time thing that doesn't actually go against their base per se, then next year when it's unwound, they'll be held whole, and then we haven't created inconsistencies in somebody in the same grade doing the same work, well, you got this bump and you didn't get this bump, is that it's a temporary thing and then it brings everybody back together so we're not dealing with why'd you do it for them and not for us kind of a thing. And
Is that given to them pre-tax, or will they be taxed as income? Will that be taxed as income?
The retirement stipend would be taxed as income.
and just as if it was given in their paycheck throughout the year.
Compensation.
Okay. Proceed.
Any other questions on these? Then I had one other item to talk about related to the budget is it's a separate public hearing in the next meeting, but it's related to the budget. And so because of the Senate Bill 91 that was passed, we now have to hold this public hearing about compensation for all of these different positions. And in May of last year, the main one that affects all of you is that in May of last year, there was a city policy put in place where we would go out and do a market survey of so many different mayoral positions and also council positions from comparison cities, and then we would come up with an average. And so what we're proposing in the budget this year is to adjust the mayor's current salary by $238.46 per pay period, and each council member's salary by $164.07 per pay period. And that will bring each of the compensation for those positions to the average of the comparison cities. I did bring a copy of the results of that. If any of you are interested in seeing that, you could look it over and we'll see how we came up with those numbers. And so
I think as a reminder, you probably remember, but this process is exactly the same process that we use for all of the positions in the city with regard to how we look at the market to establish. Now, there's not ranges for the elected officials like there are for employees, but we do the same survey, the same cities, and then take the average, and that ends up being the minimum, if you will. So we try to treat those positions so there's no inconsistency or question whether there are different standards or different ways of applying it.
Are the comparison cities, or the majority of them, similar forms of government?
yes.
Yeah.
Are they all the same?
Yeah, so we don't take any that are strong mayor form of government, or they're all of the ones that we've used in the comparison are a six-person council form of government, which is basically 5 and a mayor.
So for the other positions, we don't worry about the form of government, but for the elected officials, we tie it specifically to the part-time councils, part-time mayors.
Do you know what the percentages are for the mayor and city council? I mean, all the other ones are listed as a percentage, just wondering.
So
I don't remember exactly. Do you remember? Do you have it?
I had that written down here somewhere. The mayor was around 15% and the councils were around 24%.
So that was the concern with putting those there.
Huh?
So was that the concern with?
Yeah.
Well, that was a thought, but the real issue is that the COLAs and merits don't apply to council positions. So we thought it's not where we have the cost of living in a merit framework. We didn't want to create the perception that council member, elected officials got those positions. And so we tried to think, what's the way to put the dollar value there, but not think somebody, oh, you get a market adjustment, plus you get a merit, plus you get a COLA as an elected official. And so we thought, rather than doing that, let's frame it as an actual dollar amount.
Okay.
And
That makes sense.
we were aware of the other situation, if that makes sense. But
When's the last time we had, as a council, that the salary was changed?
I don't remember that.
I mean,
Well,
it hasn't been what we've been.
yeah, the mayor's position was changed.
We changed the mayor's.
Just an adjustment, is it a year ago? maybe a couple of years ago.
Yeah, about a year.
I was just curious because I had updated, like when the West Jordans of the world, West Valleys of the world, Orange of the world have changed, all relatively recently, the oldest one being 2001. I was just curious when ours would have changed.
It's been a while. And I think we only did it once. I was on the council.
It hasn't been frequent, and I think that's why we get in the position, and hence the reason we did the policy last year, that if we wait too long, then you get in a position where you're way out of line with market, and then you end up with a big jump. And so,
Okay.
It's always a bizarre position to be in. We all know that, what we're feeling right now. I think of it as a compensation for the council member, not for me, even if that's not how it's portrayed potentially in the community.
Well.
No one goes into this position to make money.
Sure.
Dave did, but we want to make sure, and this is just thinking out loud here, I mean, there's part of me that says I don't really feel comfortable giving myself a raise.
Well, I don't think any
And
of
the
us do.
alternative, the other side is, I also don't want us being so out of whack with other cities that if someone looks about running, that it is a total detriment to good people, knowing they're gonna be spending time, that we wanna make sure we're compensating them comparative to what other jurisdictions are compensating. So it's just a tough one. It's just a tough one.
Well, I think that's why we tried to
Yeah,
make,
make it as objective as possible, right?
I guess my thought, and I remember the conversation, I don't remember I remember talking about cost of living, and I don't remember the market survey, but that doesn't mean, it happened, I'm sure it all happened.
At your age, just
I know, Dave. But yeah, this is a conflict of interest, I feel, but someone has to make these sorts of decisions. But I feel personally that we, for what we do, for the amount of time that we spend in our individual assignments and in these meetings twice a month, I don't think we're out of whack. Even with, I can't tell you what these council members do and what these mayors do. I only know what we do. And so I thought we were talking about cost of living increase, and I wouldn't want to have percentages that are higher than what we're doing for the employees either. So I'm not sure I'm in favor of the salary increase because of this, more than if it's cost of living and you just start moving with the economy. If there is one, if there's not one, you don't get one. If there is one, not more than anybody else, I think that would be a fair way to go. Just a thought.
I think that's what this will accomplish, is it will get you in line
Later on.
Yeah.
for the future, so that in the future, as you looked at it each year and compared, okay, well, the
Well, I
2%.
understand that,
I understand.
and if we were, that's why we do it for the employees. I want to have, the amount of money that your stipend that we receive doesn't, we have good people who are going to run. And I don't think people are going to run because Sandy City is making $30,000 a year. Just don't think that's, police chiefs and city engineers, and yeah, absolutely, we should be market-driven and averages, and that makes total sense for those services. So I don't not understand.
Yeah, we're not, just, hopefully it's clear from last time and this time, the staff's not trying to push this on it. This is what's required for us to present as part of the hearing. Whether the council chooses to adopt these is a totally different thing. If you choose to, they have been built into the budget. If you don't, say we want to leave it the same, we can modify that policy and not do it. So this doesn't bind you in any way. We just want to present the information allow you to have the discussion on it. And if there needs to be a change in the approach, you know, we're happy. You guys have complete control over that.
I wouldn't want to vote no because I want to vote yes to every one of those underneath city council. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think
This is a resolution.
together. Yeah, pardon?
This is a resolution that or an ordinance that we're
Well,
voting on
it's
tonight.
a public hearing.
There is, it's by ordinance.
There is by ordinance.
Yes.
But you could line it out.
Yeah, you can make amendments to
motion.
ordinances.
So I'm looking at this kind of how Zach presented it, and I'm looking at it as one with just a year and a half or so left in my term. And, you know, I don't know what the future holds. So I look at a policy change like this as looking to future councils more than myself as a council member. And I think it's important to compensate someone because we do spend a lot of time. And otherwise, no offense, Dave, but you might get independently wealthy people that run, if that makes sense. I think you get a more variety of citizens that are willing to run if they feel they're going to be compensated for their time. So I don't know if now's the time, but you know, I appreciate going for the average rather than the high end.
Yeah.
Of comparison
I
cities.
think that's the key, is, that, you know, I wouldn't feel comfortable if we were on the high end, because then I'd feel like, no, that just doesn't feel right. This feels like you're putting everything in order, and that's what we do as a city on everything. And so we put it in order, but not to an extreme.
And we don't get in the situation like we did with the mayor's salary a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
Where
we were all of a
way
sudden,
below.
we're way
Right.
down. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's, like I say,
Well, and also remember, as you look towards the future too, you know how awkward you're feeling right now. And believe me, I feel the same way. But it takes that pressure off going forward too, because you'll always go on the average.
well, once you're caught up.
Yeah, once you're caught up and brought up to where you should be, because it is awkward. I mean, we're all about our employees, want to take care of the employees, but like I've stated, and many of you have stated, we're not in it for the funding, it's about the service that we're given and our enjoyment and satisfaction in helping our citizens, so that's really what it's about. But at the same time, to both you guys' point, you want to attract good people running for office going forward too.
Yeah, my thoughts are similar. Mostly though, thinking about, you know, again, any future council having to make this decision as well. I mean, it's never a good time, right? It's not ever going to be a good time, but if you're looking at doing the right thing, then, you know, I think the methodology that's used is fair, and it's simple, and it's easy to understand, it's easy to explain, and it's not something that, that I think any of us really would have a hard time justifying because of the way that it's laid out. So I mean, you know, I didn't remember exactly when we talked about it, but I do remember the conversation. So when you mentioned me, I was looking forward to remember how it came up. That's the part that I forgot. Because I remember we talked about the mayor's salary, because if I recall, I think the mayor's salary was at like 22 or something at the time. Whatever it was much lower. But I didn't recall the discussion about when we would relook at the council salary and the mayor's salary again. So that was my only thing, is just not remembering the context of when that happened.
Like,
Well,
But I
it makes sense
appreciate
to
the
go along.
methodology.
yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense to go along with the Senate bill though.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Somebody mentioned that when we were talking about there, so.
But the Senate bill is if you're going to make a change. If you're not going to make a change, then you don't have to do this.
Oh, Right.
Well, no.
So,
Senate Bill
this
or
isn't,
not.
you don't have to do this each
You
year.
can make that 0, or you can make it some other
But
percentage.
if there's a
or-
change-
We're just based on the policy we put together.
So to clarify then, let's say, are you saying that because of the bill, all of these positions have to be listed anytime any one of them is making a
Any
change?
change.
Yes.
Period.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yes. But
But to Clint's point, he's saying that that could just be nothing, and it would just be listed there with nothing on it.
Right.
And so what, but the issue of, just one more pitch of having the council be part of the cost of living, if there is one, then the salaries move. They're moving. Instead of jumping, they're moving.
Annually
You know, like
reviewed,
everybody-
you mean, reviewed annually?
Just like we have to do this every year.
I think the discussion was taking the one jump, and like I said, I have mixed feelings about it, but the idea of catching it up and then doing that for next year, having it be similar percentages, because then you're not catching it up, you're just,
You're caught up.
because what you're, with just doing a cost of living and merit, you will perpetually be behind. Which, I'm not saying behind is bad, I'm just saying
I don't.
that if you're okay with what you're making, then okay. But, I mean, I saw a story, I think it was Salt Lake councils, like city council, obviously they're a lot bigger than us. Do you know what methodology they used?
Who was that?
Salt Lake
Salt Lake,
City.
yeah.
Salt Lake Mayor and the
Because
council.
they gave them, there was this
The
big
mayor.
story about the mayor getting a big bump, and I think it was because they don't have a city manager. And so some of the discussion was, well, she's a strong mayor, she's no city manager, she's making, lower than what I thought someone who's like city mayor would be doing. And so a lot of the discussion was easy to say, what is she doing? She's giving herself a raise. But if you understand what she's actually doing, that she's a strong mayor and that she doesn't have a city manager, well, she obviously wasn't being compensated for what she was doing. And so I just think that it's easy to kind of look at it as if we're paying ourselves, but I don't think any of us are thinking that. I don't think that's what the purpose of this is. It's, like, to your point, Bettina, there's never a good time. And it's just a matter of, is it our policy that a council member and a mayor in the city are compensated on an average basis to select cities? If that answer is yes, then you gotta do it at one point. You've gotta make the bump. If your answer is no, everything's fine, this is totally fine, that's a different policy decision. But it would require you to basically say that Layton's gonna be below average. If that's the policy decision you make, fine, but I don't think it's necessarily us trying to make the coffers bigger.
I don't know that any of us, number one, this was a surprise that this was even on our agenda. We didn't even talk about this. You didn't know it was coming.
No?
We didn't ask. And so, I mean, part of me is like, if we really you know what, we need to be compensated. This is not working out. One of us would be like, hey, this is not working out. None of us did.
I'm
And
not
it's
sure
like,
it's wood though.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. It's
I
like, that's
agree.
not for the, maybe. So yeah.
And this doesn't need to be decided, this just needs to open a public hearing, right? It's part of the full budget that we'll approve.
Well, there is an ordinance
You
tied
pass
to
the ordinance,
this
and then
tonight.
the ordinance goes into what we talk about tonight and vote on tonight goes into the budget. To be
I would
voted
guess
on.
that if you didn't agree with that portion of it tonight in the ordinance, then you could adopt the ordinance with modification, and we could readdress it at the next meeting as part of the budget.
Yeah, the budget's not gonna get adopted tonight.
That's
No.
Next 2 weeks, you could, if whatever changes, if you make any, then the budget can be
You can-
adopted.
you could just-
reflective of it.
And this is just to your point, Clint, that if you wanted to have more discussion about it and think about it more, that there's not a necessity to have this be adopted tonight. That we could punt it.
No, you don't have to adopt it tonight. By law, there is a public hearing that is required that needs to be held tonight, but other than that, you don't have to adopt it tonight.
So we don't add this to the budget? Is that what you're saying? Or we
The budget's not
adopt the
being voted
ordinance
on
that puts it
tonight.
in the budget?
Sorry, say that again.
If we adopt this ordinance, we're putting that in the budget?
But it's still, we're not
I know,
adopting
we
the
still haven't
budget.
adopted the
And
budget.
again, you
though.
don't have to adopt, you don't even have to adopt this tonight, you just have to hold the public hearing tonight.
Right.
So the recommendation tonight might be that we hold a public hearing and that we not adopt the ordinance
As proposed.
until a further date.
Until the next meeting.
Right.
Because we need to,
And
we
we
need to
address
adopt it
it
at the
with,
next.
and we address it with the budget.
Yeah, it should be adopted at the latest with the budget, when the budget is approved.
And the reason we're doing it is because the state requires it. They've never done it before, and so that's why we're bringing it forward, and it's a new thing. But
Okay, we
So I
do
don't-
have,
Sorry, I don't want to look like we're punting on the rest of the sheet.
Yeah, that's my point. We talked about the rest of the sheet already, and didn't talk about the top of the sheet. It's such a surprise. Still not comfortable that it was kind of sprung on us.
Sorry.
Well, we know it wasn't intentional, that's not, you know, and I still feel, in a way, I mean, I think we all feel similar, but it's, I'm not gonna be here forever, okay? I don't know what forever means. I kinda know, but, you know, but yet, when I leave, I'd like to see things right, and this is right. And then I don't have to, you know, I mean, not that how I feel makes one bit of difference, but that's just how I feel, so.
Tracy, would you be able to find the date from the May 2023 meeting, whichever one it was, where we had the discussion? I just want to go back and look at the minutes so we can try to.
The ordinance was enacted May 22nd, or the policy, sorry, May 22nd, 2023.
yeah, we, the policy that the staff wrote based on what our understanding of coming out of the, out of the earlier discussion was, there's a way to address it. So that again, you guys, well, you have control of almost all the policies, but certainly that one is totally in your baby.
Yeah.
We just tried to capture it, and that's what we've been presumptively followed. But it's completely subject to your suggestions and approaches, just be tweaked.
okay, we do have one more item here, and also we'll be covering it in the next meeting, but, did you have more, Tracy?
No, I'm good.
Go over?
Thank you.
Okay, because we still have the sanitary sewer management plan and the wastewater plan, master plan.
Good,
Yeah, which, I guess, okay, here's the deal, you guys. Every meeting we've been late.
And so
We got
why
4
should-
minutes
why
till,
should
we
break
have
the
4
record?
minutes, we have 4 minutes till we should be out there again. And yet we still have another item here to discuss. That's a pretty
Gotta get rid of the work
intense.
meeting, Joy, I'm telling you.
What's that?
So we gotta get rid of the work meeting. We just gotta go out there, start it at 5:30.
Yeah, but when do you end?
When you finish. We wouldn't have any, it would be more efficient. We already talked about this.
That's,
But
but,
You
yeah.
go out there, you have a work meeting, you don't have a work meeting, you just go out there and start. We start public meeting at 5:30, we go through exactly what we did here, and when we get done with an item, we vote on it. Just what we just talked about, instead of moving on
So
to the
you're,
next.
you're proposing a combined meeting, is
Yes.
what you're saying, versus a work meeting and a
Because our
council
discussion that we just had on the
Yep. salary.
salary would have continued until we decided that we've either heard enough, someone makes a motion, we vote on it, we table it, whatever. Then Steve comes up and he gets to present, and there's no shot clock. It's just in one meeting. We could have the closed door meetings at the very end, if we ever needed a closed door meeting, we just have it at the end of the agenda. And then you would say, oh, we have a closed door meeting, and then head to our closed door meeting, and we do the closed door meeting, and we finish. I just think it would be efficient, because I feel bad that we always have to cut off staff, or cut off debates, or discussions, when it's really just for, it's not your fault. I'm not saying it's your fault, it's just that the artificial timeline makes it difficult sometimes. So, just my 2 cents. to get us even closer to the shot clock. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so now we're 2 minutes too, and so I'm gonna propose this then, rather than spend the time in here, this would be a good topic that, Steve, if you don't mind, perhaps we just cover it more in depth in the other meeting, and just go ahead and go to the other room, start our council meeting on time, but know that we're gonna need to spend some time on this. Does that work for you guys?
Sure.
Okay.
Do we have a choice?
Well, with that then, I was gonna say, anything else we'll just discuss out there for now, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion. So we-
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Waiting for it.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Let's do that.
Next time, give me a
Any,
name or something, then I'll hold off.
Sorry.
Percentages.
I could see this leading up this way, and that's why. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone out to our Layton City Council meeting this evening. It is June 6th, and we have a fairly close start on time for tonight. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and start our meeting with our traditional prayer and pledge. And tonight, that will be conducted by Councilmember Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'll offer an invocation, and then I'll invite everyone to join me in the pledge. Our dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful to gather here
this evening to conduct the business of this great city. Father, we're grateful to be residents of this city and live among the great nature that we enjoy here, the history that we enjoy. Grateful, Father, for those that paved the way before us, built this area and in this community. I'm grateful, Father, for the residents that strive to make this a great place to live. We thank Thee, Father, for the city employees that work hard to keep us safe and provide the services needed that we enjoy living here. Father, we're grateful for all of our blessings that Thou bestows upon us. We pray that Thou will watch over us this night as we make decisions that affect those who live here, that we will be wise and judicious, that we will be thoughtful to those who are affected by our decisions. We ask Thee for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
If you all please rise. Follow me. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you, Councilmember Roberts. I appreciate that. Tonight, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that we have one of our youth council members with us, Lydia Garza. So, Lydia, we appreciate you being on the youth council for us, but would you mind taking just a quick minute and tell us about yourself, what school you go to, and what your aspirations are?
So I go to Layton High. I am part of Layton City Youth Council. Right now I'm looking into government, and I don't know if I want to do that. And I'm also looking into a career for towards math and data analyzing. But yeah, I do dance and I play the piano.
Sweet. Talent. I love it. That's good. And like I said, we appreciate all your volunteer hours too. I've seen her at many events helping us out throughout the city. Okay, council, we have 2 sets of minutes that we need to approve. So there's no corrections to them. Then I'd look for a motion or someone to make that motion regarding the sets of minutes.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we adopt the minutes for the Layton City Council work meeting March 21st, 2024, and the Layton City Council meeting April 4th, 2024.
Okay. Do I have it's been moved in second that we adopt the minutes as written. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on down to our municipal announcements. So with that, I know that this is a busy time of year for our Parks and Rec. And I know Communities that Care's got a few things going on. So, Councilmember Roberts, let's start with the Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, a lot going on. We've got Liberty Days just about a month away. Full day of events starting early in the morning with breakfast. The whole list of events can be found on our website. Also in our flyer that comes in with the municipal billing. Starting the Sunday before the 4th of July, June 30th here at the amphitheater, we'll have our Voices of Liberty concert. Always a great event with the symphony, the Philharmonic, the County Philharmonic Symphony. And we'll honor our hometown heroes. You can also, nominations still open? Yes, you can also go to the Parks and Recreation website and nominate hometown heroes in our community that we will honor at that evening. Again, go to laytoncity.org in the community events and see the whole listing of all the events. Also tomorrow, Layton is lucky to host Weber State's Wild Sevens 7-on-7 football tournament. I believe 40 different teams will be competing, starting at 8 a.m. with the varsity teams, and JV and sophomore will be at 2:30 p.m. So Ellison Park, go watch some great football.
Okay, that's great. Before we move on to some of our other items, let me just kind of go in order because that's tomorrow, Friday, for the football, but then this coming Saturday, out here in our Layton's Common Park, we have the Sounds of Freedom car show. And this car show has been going on for many years, and we appreciate all those folks that sponsor it so that we can, have a fun event in our city. And anyone who has an old car or motorcycles or anything that they'd like to display, you're welcome to come. The entries are free. And preferably, they want you to pre-register, and it's through the shade tree at gmail.com. You could contact them, or if you see any posters around town, there's a QR code on there to help you register your vehicle. And they're going to start loading those vehicles on the lawn at 7 a.m. And the car show gets underway at 10 a.m. And in addition to the car show, there'll be food trucks, raffles, auction items, live music. And the key thing about this car show this year, which is we're very fortunate here at Layton City that every year they identify themselves, the producers of this car show, on who they want their contribution funding to go to. And this year they've acknowledged the fact that Layton City is really trying hard to focus our area in front of the Vietnam Memorial Wall to create a Freedom Plaza. So this year, a lot of the funding that they raise will actually go towards the construction of that Freedom Plaza. So I hope we get a lot of people that come out and show your patriotism as well to all of those folks that serve in our armed services. So again, it actually starts at 9 a.m. on Saturday and goes until 5 p.m. Okay. Anyone else?
Madam Mayor, do you mind?
Yeah.
Speaking of those who served, today's the 80th anniversary of the D-Day invasion of Europe. So this morning I was teaching a class on VA benefits, and so my mind has been thinking about the veterans who went through hell to try to make sure that we could have these types of events and do all that. So there's not many of those World War II veterans around anymore, but if you know one, tell them thanks, or any veteran that you see, to thank them for the services, including Mr. Tudor here, who's with us.
Okay, thank you. Great. Anyone else have any announcements they'd like to share? Okay, if not, then let's go ahead and jump down to our citizens' comments. So if anyone in the audience would like to address the council, you're more than welcome to. If you are here to speak on any of the items that are under our public hearing, then we will ask that you wait until that point in time to speak on regarding those items under the public hearing. Otherwise, you're welcome to come up and come to the mic and just state your name and for our records.
So I'm Ross Marshall, Mayor and council members. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm a board member on the Davis Arts Council, and just wanted to show our appreciation and support for you all, and thank you for your support to the Davis Arts Council. We know you've supported it through the budget and through the ramp, and we just want to tell you thank you, and we appreciate all you do for us. So thanks.
Well, thank you, and thank everyone on the committee for what they do for our city and the combined efforts they show working with our Parks and Rec, as well as far as coordinating like the Friday night films and a lot of the active pages and some of those ancillary items that people just don't realize that you guys do for us. So thank you. Okay, anyone else? Okay, you're welcome to come up and just state your name only.
Tudor of Layton City, Utah. We have for years gone over there in recreation and asked, and there's no name upper there, a list, nothing. You know, they used to put that up, the girls would go over there and would have 11 different people that's on the recreation there. Where do I find it this year?
Are you talking about the members of the commission?
No, just
Or the
public, just.
Oh, you're talking about the concerts that will be performed over here?
Right. Yeah, on
So I,
Sunday night. I wondered if anybody knows that we've been doing that for 25 years until now. Did they move somewhere?
they have, and I'll be happy to answer it unless our liaison wants to. But we do talk about the
Tom, they've moved, and for 25 years, they didn't do it like they used to. The last maybe 4 or 5, but you can just go to the DAC.
What's the website?
Davis Arts Council on the internet, and then you can pull up the programs, whether you want to look at Sunday night programs, which start this Sunday, and whether you want to look at the events that are paid events and that. So
Tommy, go to.
I met the building there.
yeah, they're gone from there.
The doors are locked. The chairs are all gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's why I come here. Somebody here will hear all these 300 people that calling us on the telephones. Well, but they don't have any banners up there like they had. No. They don't have any telephones. No.
Yeah, they have telephones, Tom. Tom, they have telephones and they have the internet. And if you want to talk to Ross,
Come and get me. I've got 30 or 40.
Okay, Tommy, this isn't a debate. We appreciate your input, and that's very good information. And luckily, we have a representative here from the Arts Council that can take that information back. But in addition to that, they do have the website, and I'm going to have Councilmember Smith Edmondson tell you exactly what that website is.
Do you want to write it down? It's davisarts.org.
And their new office is located just north of the mall in the LSI building. So it's kitty corner from Roosters. That's their new office.
I went there and talked to one lady that was there working, and she didn't like that. Everybody was gone, not working. And I thought, well, somebody in Layton, Utah ought to be knowing something.
yeah.
They did when I was in the police department every day.
And Tom, the concert on Sunday is The Real Folk, and it's at 7 p.m. and it'll be just over here. So they do have a free concert this Sunday.
Good, on this Sunday?
Yes.
Good. Got a lot of people.
Or excuse me, on the 16th, I'm sorry.
That will keep calling me, where do I go and what time? Okay. That's all they need. So I couldn't get it. And if I couldn't find it, I didn't want Myrna to get mad at me. She's sitting right here.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
We'll get it taken care of because
Okay.
I don't want to be walking around this place for a month.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate your input. We're gonna move our meeting along here, and seeing that there's no other citizens comment, I want to move on to our consent items. And tonight we only have one item on our consent agenda, which is regarding our sanitary sewer plan and our wastewater master plan. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Mr. Steve Jackson to go through a pretty extensive explanation of this for all of us. So thank you.
Mayor, Council, it's good to be with you tonight. Appreciate the time that you've given me to talk about this. Hopefully it won't be too boring, but engineers sometimes like to get in the weeds. So as the mayor mentioned, sanitary sewer management plan and wastewater master plan, I want to acknowledge the engineers at Bowen and Collins and Associates that helped put this plan together, as well as our city staff, not just in the engineering department, but also planning and management services in the part of the plans that pertain to them as well. So just some background on why we do these plans, specifically this one. I mean, it's good policy that we do these, but the Utah Sewer Management Program is administered by the Department of Environmental Quality, And as part of that, they do require that we have, as a city, a sewer system management plan, or an SSMP, and then a system evaluation and capacity assurance plan, or a CCAP. So we have the sanitary sewer management plan, which covers the SSMP requirements, and then the wastewater master plan covers our CCAP requirements as we go forward. So I won't spend a lot of time talking about the sanitary sewer management plan, but the components of that plan are just general requirements for how we manage our sanitary sewer system, operations and maintenance program, the sanitary sewer design standards that we have, the overflow action plan that we have if we do have a backup or an incident. And then we also have grease, oil, and sand management program that we take care of to help prevent backups in our sewer system. And then, as I mentioned, the Layton City System Evaluation Capacity Assurance, or CCAP, which is the wastewater management plan component of that. So you all have that in your packets, and it's available for people that want to get that if they want to. We do certify that is available to the Division of Environmental Quality so that they can look at it if they want to as well. With the wastewater master plan, this is where I'll spend most of my time talking tonight. We evaluate the existing system similar to most of the master plans that we do, or all of the master plans. We look at our existing conditions. We look at our future growth. We do some hydraulic modeling so that we can ensure that the growth that we are going to see is taken care of properly, that the existing conditions are being met at the level of service that we expect, and then we go and we look at what needs to be fixed or changed and updated as we go forward. And then we also look at the rate structure that the system has in order to keep it viable and to ensure that we have the necessary revenues that we need to continue moving forward. So I'll jump into this. A lot of these slides are just some maps and things, but this is the map of our existing system. All the lines that are in that light blue color are 8-inch sewer lines. The majority of our pipes are 8-inch pipes. There's almost 200 miles of 8-inch sewer pipes. The whole system is close to 220 miles of pipe. So if you take that into consideration, there's a lot of pipes the city manages. Some of the bigger pipes that you see on that screen are the North Davis Sewer District trunk lines. They do a great job with collecting from us, and then they treat it at their system, and so we are a part of their district. So that's why you see the majority of the large lines are theirs, and then we are mostly the smaller size lines. With the existing conditions in the city, we look at growth. We use the Wasatch Front Regional Council traffic analysis zones, I guess you'll call those. It's kind of weird that you use traffic zones to do a wastewater master plan, but there's a lot of data in those zones that help us estimate existing densities, existing populations, socioeconomic things that help us to take that information, convert that into a wastewater, what would you call it, wastewater production schedule. I'm trying to be delicate here. I don't know what the best words are. Wastewater production rates. So each household we estimate is 182 gallons per day of wastewater that they generate, and that's equivalent to an ERU. We call that an equivalent residential unit. Per capita, it's 57 gallons per day, and per employee, if you're in a commercial area, it's 35. So the lower chart there shows the population, Wasatch Front estimates that we have all the way out to 2060, and then the adjusted population based on what we view as the potential growth that could be in some of these areas. And then they calculate all that out to the table to the right, and you end up with million gallons per day of wastewater production in the city. So 5.88 is our current, or 6.52, I guess, is our current estimate here around 2023. And then we anticipate we'll be at around 11 million gallons a day sometime in the 2060 time frame. So as we move to the next slide, this is the future growth graph. So this first one is the existing conditions that we have, and then you can see they extrapolate those out onto the future growth. Now, the areas that are kind of hatched in that red border in black, those are areas that we specifically think there are changes to what the Wasatch Front Regional Council numbers are projecting. They have some limitations on how they can distribute population growth in their models and things like that based on what they do. And so we try and do a deeper dive there. So we know there are potential business centers, town centers, things like that in our city that we anticipate will see different growth. And so we want to make sure we're looking at what's actually happening in the city and not just, what we hope is happening. And so that's where those hatched areas come into play, is their adjustments based on discussions with our planning group and what we think the anticipated densities could be. It doesn't mean that that's what they will be. It just means that we're trying to plan to make sure that we do have the capacities that we need as we go forward. So with all of that, those maps come out, and you can chart a pretty graph here that shows what the previous master plan shows in the black line. The blue line is what Wasatch Front Regional Council would project in their populations, but the red line is what we would anticipate seeing based on our current estimates of where we're seeing growth and things like that in the city. So you can see it's a little bit front loaded in that 2030, a little bit steeper, but then it flattens out a little bit more, and then we end up slightly higher, I think about 6,000 ERUs more than what the Wasatch Front Regional Council does out to 2060. So after we do all of that to kind of figure out, hey, where we got with population and where the water's going to, or the wastewater is going to be produced, we break the model down and we show all these different sub areas. So this is where all the sewer systems flow and which pipes they go into. We use a model to project the diurnal pattern. So every 24 hours, we anticipate that these are the plans. You can see the black line shows kind of the average pattern. Most people aren't using wastewater at 4 a.m., but there's a lot of people using wastewater at 11 a.m. and 12 a.m. or 12 p.m. So we do have one kind of production facility at Kroger that we model specifically because they do have an impact, and so they have a different diurnal pattern in there because they are a substantial producer of wastewater. They're our biggest water user too. And so we want to make sure that we're providing the capacities that they need to be able to continue operating in the city. So then after we take into account all the modeling, they run the model in the system and they say, where are we at with our existing capacities? This is the map of where we are today. There's a little bit of capacity we're watching there on Sugar Street, just south of Kroger, and then also on Gordon Avenue, just east of I-15 there that we have. And so the areas in blue are great. They have a lot of capacity in them. As they get more red, that's when we start looking at whether or not we need to do some projects to move things forward. Then we look at a 10-year plan. So the system capacity in the 10-year window, you can see there's a few areas that show up in kind of that reddish, orangish color. Those are areas that we would watch over these next 10 years, make sure that we have projects planned to be able to address those capacities as the development occurs. And then we'll have to match the densities that would occur with those developments with the need for these projects so that we're not overbuilding, but we're not underbuilding either. So we look at the short term and then we look at the future build out, which is in the 2060 timeframe. You can see there's some areas that show up a little bit more. That's because we anticipate the densities in some of these areas will be higher than what our previous master plans were anticipating. And we all know the way the state is currently looking at housing and those things. We anticipate that will continue and be a trend that will move forward. So as we look at all those areas, they come up with a plan. We look at that plan together and we say what projects need to be done. So all of the lines that are in purple on this map, they've got project numbers next to them. Those are all the areas that we anticipate sometime between now and in the 2060 timeframe will be a project that we will need to address. So we broke those down into kind of short-term windows, which would be the 7 to 10 year timeframe, and then anything beyond that 10-year timeframe is in the lower section under long-term. We show that we need about $5.16 million in project funding for those 4 projects on Sugar Street, Gentile, and Gordon. And then there's an additional $13.57 million projected that we would need in the future for projects beyond that long-term plan. One of the recommendations that we had a discussion with the consultants was whether or not we need to implement or enact a sewer impact fee. There currently is a sewer impact fee that is collected by the North Davis Sewer District for their facilities. Again, the sewer impact fee is only for projects that are considered system improvements. So enlargements to the system above what a general development would require. So as you recall, in our map, we have over 1 million feet of 8-inch pipe. The majority of our developments only require 8-inch pipes, but when you put 8-inch pipes into other 8-inch pipes, eventually you need a bigger pipe at the end, right? So luckily for us, North Davis Sewer District has the majority of these large lines. They have they've incurred substantial capital costs to put those in, and they manage them. And so up to this point, we haven't needed a sewer impact fee, but we felt like it was prudent to look into whether or not a sewer impact fee would be necessary and prudent. And so we feel like we will be better off if we run the analysis and then bring that back to you for consideration in the future. And so just wanted to point that out, that right now there is no impact fee, but we will do an analysis and then bring that back to you for discussion and talk about whether it's the right time to enact one. So then that's kind of the growth related portion of the plan. Then we have a system renewal portion of the plan, or maintenance, I guess you'd call it. This is a map of the pipe ages based on the subdivisions when they were installed. So you can see the areas that are kind of the warmer colors, the reds and the oranges, they're much older pipe systems than the blues. And so as we look at the system, we say, how much is it going to cost to maintain this system into the future? And so you can tell, it's kind of an interesting pattern, but you can see kind of where the growth has occurred throughout the city over time. Excuse me. And so overall, if we had to replace all of our system today, it would cost over $500 million. That's not going to happen, right? Over 1 year, but we assume 100-year system service life, and that's not out of the question with the pipe materials that we're using today and things like that. 100 years is feasible, but not all pipes last 100 years, and so we know we need to kind of estimate some of these things. But if you needed to replace 1% of your pipes every year, and you had to replace them, similar to our roads, we talk a lot about rehabilitation or replacement. The replacement is always much more expensive than a rehabilitation. And so if we were to try and replace every pipe, then we would be looking at an annual budget of $5 million a year. If we could rehabilitate every single pipe in our system, which we'd love to do, we'd only need about $1 million a year. Rehabilitation consists of slip lining, doing some things that you don't have to dig the roads up for. So we're seeing, savings of 30 to 40%, in some cases where over digging up the road and inconveniencing people, all those things. So we've taken an estimate of about 50% could be replaced and 50% would need to be rehabilitated to try and come up with what our needed budget is. And so that lands right about $3 million a year that we would be looking to spend on the system renewal going forward. So if you take the map of all the ages of the pipes and you graph that out and you say, okay, if we need to replace all of these things, how does that line up? And so this chart shows in the gray what would need to be replaced versus what would need to be rehabilitated, or what could be rehabilitated. And then that blue line that's dashed there is the $3 million average that we would try and target for doing these projects. So one of the things to point out is that there are some years where that line is lower or higher than what our anticipated costs would need to be. But there's some years in there where it's substantially lower than what our costs would need to be. And so our goal would be to fund this system at a level that we could go in and actually maybe proactively move some of those projects that would have to be a replacement into a rehabilitation standpoint and keep them from spiking up in those areas like we show on that level. So moving forward, the rate analysis came back and said, okay, what do we need to do to be able to fund the system and these improvements and projects that we're talking about? And so just to remind everybody, the goal here is to maintain a reliable sewer service at affordable rates for the customers. I mean, we're not trying to make money on this. We're just trying to maintain the system and make sure that nobody likes sewage in their house. Nobody likes sewage in the road. I mean, it just is what it is. And we've seen some substantial increase over the years in inflation. I think we talked about it in water. We've seen it everywhere. So maintaining stable revenue generation to make sure we have the funds available when we need them, and then minimizing our long-term costs by eliminating debt. if we tried to run it and had to spike in those years, we would have to be bonding for things, and I don't think that's really prudent for the way the city has operated in the past. So with that, the consultants have run a rate analysis. They've recommended, as Tracy mentioned in the work meeting, an 8.2% increase over the next 3 years in order to fund this program. And then moving forward, this is what the graph would look like. So we would match the revenue generated with the amount of funds we were collecting for those first 3 years until it got to the level where we could fund those first full $3 million a year in projects. So what does that look like for us if we change these rates at this 8.2%? The existing is $29.45 per month, and remember, a large chunk of that goes straight through to the sewer district, and then we keep a small portion of that. So it would move to $31.86 would be the proposed rate for this coming July 1st. As we talk about the budget, Tracy can go into that a little bit more. And then for the churches, schools, commercial, it would move from $2.25 per 1,000 gallons up to $2.43 per 1,000 gallons. So then I do want to make a note here that if once we bring back the sewer impact fees and if you adopt those, the rates in whatever year it is that we take a look at that, we would reevaluate those to make sure that we're adjusting for those impact fee revenues, so we're not piling those on top of these existing rates going forward. So with that, I guess I got to do the official part of this here and say this is resolution 2420 for your consideration. Adoption of the sanitary sewer management plan and wastewater master plan update. And the staff would recommend the council adopt resolution 2420, authorizing the adoption of the updated sanitary sewer management plan and wastewater master plan, and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary documents. So with that, is there any questions I can answer?
Council, do you have any questions on this?
Slides you want me to go back to?
I just want to first clarify that the request is to adopt the plan, but the rates that were presented was based on a study, but that is not something that we are voting on tonight, correct?
No, not in the plan recommends those rates, but the budget is a separate discussion, and you will get to choose whether you increase those or adopt those as part of the budget. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So on the system renewal that you talked about, I'm just curious how that all the data is gathered as far as the pipes, because the pipes we don't see, we know the age of the pipes. I was thinking about, our streets. We have a third party once in a while come in and assess all of our roads, grade them.
Yeah.
Is there a third party that comes in, or do we just do that ourselves?
Both, actually. So we do have a third party. We use a system. It's an acoustic system to actually go through half of the city each year. Relatively new technology, but they assess each one of the pipes using an acoustic sound wave they send from one manhole to the next, and it gives them the readings that give those calculations. But then also we have a cleaning and televising program with one of our local contractors that they come in and they video the lines after they've been cleaned, and they give it an assessment rating as well. So each time we go to either replace or rehabilitate a pipe, we're using all of that information and that data to figure out what the proper treatment is for it, similar to the roads, like you mentioned. Some need an overlay, some need a slurry seal. Sometimes these need to be dug up and replaced because maybe a joint is separated or something like that, but others can be slip lined at a significant savings for us. So, and then our own city public works shops, they have a camera van and a cleaning truck, and so they go out and assess areas of when they see a trouble area or something like that as well.
So that graph you showed with that has all the spikes and that's all of that data goes into that.
Yeah, that's in there. This graph is specific to the age of the pipes, and we're working to refine all of this data into a more manageable system. But that is where a lot of that comes from. Newer pipes tend to have less problems than older pipes, and so that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mayor, thank you. Steve, you mentioned the consultants recommend, and this is, by the way, well done. So thank you for the presentation and thank you for the logic behind the logical movement from the different topics to the rate analysis. What's your opinion on where we are with our system?
To be honest, we're a little shy in our reserve fund right now. I'll just be honest with you. The inflation has hit everybody extremely hard, and so projects are costing a lot more than they used to. We feel like this is a reasonable recommendation. We don't feel like we just saw them say, "Hey, this is what you should be doing, so you should do it." But at the same time, I think when we talk with Alex a lot, he is really concerned about making sure we're providing the services that we need to provide them at and doing it in the most cost-effective way possible. And so we would recommend that we adopt this plan and this rate structure to get us to a point where we do have adequate reserves, that we do have the funding to make sure we're keeping up on our maintenance, our rehabilitations, because we do feel like the rehabilitation is going to save in the long run a substantial amount of money each year. So, yeah.
Do you know the I guess the feasibility of how quick or any sort of financial impact the sewer impact fee would have, and if that would potentially alleviate the perpetual 1.6%? Because 3 years of getting us to where we need to be, what we've typically done with water and other funds is that we'll have these increases and then we'll wait and see how revenues look. And so is the idea that and maybe it's too premature to talk about this, but is the idea that the sewer impact fee, like you said, you're not going to double those up, but you would reassess. Is that a process where we could have an idea of a sewer impact fee sooner rather than later, so that we could understand maybe what it would look like short term for the rates?
Yeah, they did actually give an estimate of about $400 per home or per ERU that would be assessed, but there is a very specific legal process that we have to go through to do that study and get all of those answers. So my feel is that the 1.6 is really kind of an inflationary adjustment number. Whether we decide to do that or not is up to us, but I think some of the discussions in the previous meeting about what happens if you don't, and then to catch up, right? So I don't anticipate it's going to be a huge swing in the rates, but it would have an impact, because some of these projects you're seeing the $5 million, because we can only collect impact fees for that first 10-year window. That $5 million would be able to be reduced out of the user rates. I would anticipate Tracy and I would work together to calculate those numbers, bring those back to you and show you that, and then possibly that third year of the 8.2 would be the one that we would try and adjust in if we can't get it to you before the second adjustment.
Yeah. And thank you for that. The reason why is mostly a lot of this is based on growth and the concept of growth paying for growth, right? And having the residents just have to continue to have their rates increased because there's more development. I know it's for a whole system. We have these discussions with water. Maybe a question for Alex. Is the concept of sewer impact fees, is this something that's applicable other communities, other cities doing this? Is there a reason, and this isn't obviously I'm not saying this rhetorically, is there a reason why we haven't done it in the past? And would you be in favor of us looking at that portion of this, the sewer impact fee, moving forward?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. Absolutely. We've had this discussion on several occasions, robust discussion back and forth to try to explore as Steve said, the best and fairest and most responsible way to deal with it. I think the reason I asked that very question is part of the discussion, and I think historically, and Steve talked about this in his earlier comments, is that historically the system type improvements, the big improvements, have been taken care of by the sewer district. And that's what impact fees are meant to be, is the cost to put in improvements that benefit beyond just a single project. They're community-wide benefits. And in the past, the city has generally been involved in that 80-inch standard, right, within a subdivision and tying into a district line. But with the growth that's happening and the densities that are happening, Stephen, correct me, we're creeping into the situation where we're not just going to have 8-inch and then real big lines, but there needs to be some middle-sized lines that are above the minimum standard that help carry the volume out of those subdivision areas to those bigger lines. And it's a more efficient way than doing, building more big lines. And so that's really been the logic is how do we, and you touched on it perfectly, is how do we balance, don't put those costs of development and system improvements on the backs of existing ratepayers, and to strive to have that proper balance that new development is paying its fair share and the existing residents are paying their fair share. And so it's really something that from a fairness perspective, we've never tried to press it because we didn't think there was a legitimate justification. And now we think that there is, given this new modeling and the density that is being driven by a whole host of policies and directives in terms of housing, the densities and the volumes that are going to be created are more significant than they were under earlier plans. Some of that we have control over, some of it we don't. But that's a long question. But yeah, we think it makes perfect sense and is the fairest approach for the existing residents.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Seeing that there's no questions, then I'd bring it back to the council for action regarding resolution 24-20.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we adopt resolution 24-20.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second that we adopt the resolution. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We'll now go on to our public hearing portion of our meeting. We do have 2 items on our public hearing. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Tracy Probert, who is our finance director, that's going to talk about the first item, which is the compensation increase for specific offices.
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, just to give you a little background, in the general session of the legislature earlier this year, Senate Bill 91 was passed, and that amended Utah Code 10-3818 regarding city employee salaries. And what it did is it required that each municipality now hold a separate public hearing. Normally our wage increases and things are just part of the budget and budget process, which we also have a public hearing tonight on that. But now we have to hold a separate public hearing regarding increases. And I put a slide up here and a list of the offices and officers and that were addressed in that bill, ranging from the mayor to the city treasurer. And so that's why that appendix is added to the ordinance that was presented. It was mentioned, and so I would recommend that as soon as I'm done talking, then we hold a public hearing regarding this, and then we'll be able to fulfill the requirements of that law. But it was also mentioned that these things are adopted as part of the budget. And so we did present an ordinance related to this tonight, but it may actually be a better recommendation from me that we postpone adopting that ordinance tonight and that we just adopt this as part of the budget. And I could see if Councilman, does that sound reasonable to you? Or city attorney, I'm pointing out over there, but there was some discussion around that.
Yeah,
and
that
so
works.
it would seem that that might be more appropriate. And looking into this in between meetings, it would seem that that was the intention as well, is that we have to hold the public hearing, but then we adopt the salary increases and the budget for those as part of the budget. So I don't know if that made any sense at all.
Yeah, we still have to adopt the ordinance because the law does state that it has to be, this has to be adopted by ordinance, but that can be done along with the budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Nope.
All right. Sorry for the confusion.
No, that's okay.
So I would just propose at this time that we open a public hearing regarding compensation increases for officers of the city.
Okay. Okay, council, do you want to make a motion to open the public hearing at this time?
I move that we open the public hearing.
Okay.
At this time.
Is that a second?
That was a second.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, we'll be legal here. Okay, so the public hearing is now open regarding the compensation for specific officers. So if there's anyone in the audience that's wished to speak to that, you're more than welcome. And in addition to that, council, if you have any questions or comments, you're welcome to speak as well. Okay. Oh.
This is something that we had a good discussion about in our work meeting. And after we've had the discussion, since it's the first time, I actually had a chance to review some of the market survey data about where we're at. And again, it's always a difficult position to be put in because we're could be seen as self-serving, and I understand that. And so being, I guess, cognizant of that, when I reviewed the idea of reviewing our salaries and seeing them, making sure they're aligning with market conditions, I think that's important. But I also think, at least for the council, looking over what our current compensation is as compared to some of the other cities, it's not too far off from West Jordans, the Murrays, the South Jordans of the world. And so I think that perhaps, in my mind anyway, that I don't know if it's necessarily something that requires a change. At least in my mind, at least for the council. I think that the mayor's salary is not as in line with maybe some of the other cities, the South Jordans, Orams of the world. And so I'm not sure I would feel comfortable, at least of myself, having reviewed this, having our discussions beforehand. I don't think we're so out of line that we need to really do anything at this point, at least for the city council. So my recommendation maybe would be, and kind of where I'm at on this, is that perhaps we just move the mayor's and leave the city council as it is. The mayor, we've moved up your salary before because of all the work that you do on the outside. And I think that if it's still not aligning with where we're at with other cities with similar makeup, I think that would be something as a council voting to potentially get her, or the mayor, not her specifically, but the mayor as an office to where the mayor should be. I don't really necessarily see the city council as, when I see the analysis, that we're really that much different. And there's a part of me that feels, obviously, that Councilmember Smith Edmondson said this in the meeting, that there's really never a good time to raise it, right? Raise your own salaries. Who gets to do that? And so we don't seek this opportunity. But I think that it may be that this particular time, where we just basically our previous discussion was a rate increase, a fee increase for residents for the next 3 years, that I think, I'm not sure I would feel comfortable saying that I don't see there's really that big of a problem with where we're at by being in any hurry to raise city council salaries, considering we're going to be asking the users of the sewer system, of which all of us are, to be paying a little bit more. So it's not necessarily that I've changed my mind. I think we just had this discussion. It's the first time we've had it tonight, but that would be my 2 cents on it. Is I think that the mayor's salary, I think there's a reason for that maybe to move, but I don't necessarily think that the city council salary is in dire need of being moved at this time. So those are my thoughts on it, and I'll leave it to the rest of the council to provide theirs.
Does anyone else wish to comment on the rate?
Thank you, Mayor. I was similar to Councilman Bloxham in the previous meeting. Just I guess I'm echoing now my feelings that the council salaries are. I mean, these cities that we are compared against, I don't know what they do. I don't know what those council members do or don't do, and so I can only gauge from what
what we do. And yeah, it is a sacrifice. It is time. I know that none of us do this because there's a paycheck. It's more a stipend. It's to reimburse for some of that time. And I appreciate the fact that there is a little bit of a reimbursement. That's helpful. But the time that I put in, and I don't, and maybe you all are here all the time. I'm not. But I feel like what I do, where I am, the meetings I go to, the conferences that we have to go to, the responsibilities that I have, that's a fair. If you take that and prorate that back the other way, I believe it's reasonable and fair at this time. So I don't. Again, I stated earlier, I'm not comfortable moving the salaries. If anything, especially I didn't want, since it's lumped in with lumped in is not the right term, but you understand, with these city officials, I don't want to, I would want that separate, in that I'm not saying that I don't believe that the cost of living increases for the city officials and the merit increases that we've already talked about. We've had meetings, budget meetings, and the reasons why, and I wouldn't want that construed that I don't agree with all of that, because I do. I feel like, and it's not keeping up with inflation. I understand that, and I think the employees of the city understand that as well. But it's doing what we can at this time, and so. And I don't know how we break that up, if we do break that up in this ordinance, but those are my thoughts right now. Thanks.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
That's why I asked the mayor. Councilmember Morris, are you thinking that there would be an Appendix A that would have all of the city employees, and then an Appendix B if we were to do anything for mayor and city council, just so that it's not all in the same line and lumped together? Is that something that you're thinking about, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know how we could, because I don't know what we're going to decide tonight or moving
Well,
forward.
I just mean
but I just
presentation wise, that it could be Appendix A is this, Appendix B is
sure.
that. But that way it's broken out. Okay.
Any other comments on this? I mean, I know we had a lengthy discussion in the other room on it,
So I only have two thoughts about it. One is, prior to this, this bill being passed, I think we were thinking about maybe a cost of living type of, increase, which would be similar to what the staff has, and just kind of, as Councilmember Morris said, not necessarily in line with inflation, but at least identifying and understanding that we know everything is increasing. And so for a mayor and city council to remain flat would just bring those positions to be completely out of whack at some other time in the future. I am still comfortable with something like that. Also, because our form of government is similar to Orem, South Jordan, West Valley, maybe even looking at just those three cities. And I know the form of government doesn't necessarily affect the city council. It's more about the mayor, city manager, and what they do. But instead of including all of the other cities that were included in the calculation, maybe seeing what it looks like with just those three, and what that might look like. And one thing I just want to note again, and then I'll be done. What we discussed in the previous meeting is that, to be completely clear, this is about a position, not about individuals. So none of us up here, and I presume any in the audience and those watching, would likely not feel comfortable discussing if you're going to give yourself a raise. But this would be about positions and about making sure that the citizens of Layton who want to run for office at some point in time would feel confident that they could do that if they still needed to have a job, if they couldn't hold a full-time job, that they'd be able to do due diligence to this type of a position, Because regardless of the amount of time we may think we're going to spend doing these types of positions, the perception to the residents is that we are always available. And so in that sense, I don't find this too far-fetched as an idea, but perhaps fleshing out what that amount actually would look like. And I wouldn't feel comfortable using these dollar figures and then still doing a 2% moving forward, but maybe some combination or just a 2%, something along the lines that makes it feasible to where we're acknowledging the work that is done, because I feel just like the rest of you, we all put in as much work as we feel we can, and sometimes more than we can, because we want to do the best job for the city. And in doing so, you do make a sacrifice. And this would just be a way of saying, we understand. And so I don't find it crazy far-fetched. But with all of the other increases at this time, I'm okay also with not necessarily moving forward and maybe continuing a discussion on how we might want to look at this for future councils, future mayors, not necessarily for ourselves.
Okay. Thomas?
It's real fun. Never been ever had the opportunity to give myself a raise. My wife won't even raise my allowance. So, as I look at it, and as I hear everybody, I think we all feel the same way. Councilman Morris said it was like $120 or something. I can't remember what he said.
Right there, 64.
Oh, I'm sorry. 164. I didn't know that was figured out. And I don't think that's going to make a difference in anything that I'm going to do. I'm not going to work less or more because of $164. I didn't even know, and I'm sure most of us, nobody knew when they ran for office what we got paid. It was just, you got a stipend and whatever. So I don't think that's as important. The thing that I would say, because there's going to come a time when we won't be on the council, and that if they were to receive similar to what the workforce receives, the COLA, the cost of living, I would feel comfortable with that. If you're going to give me, 2,000 or 3,000 a month, yeah, I might have a different opinion, but I don't. But it's tough doing that. We want to be fair. I worked for the city for 30 years, and I don't know how I'd feel if the council come back and said, hey, I got a big raise and you got your $7.13, so you should be happy. But it's just an awkward position, and I have no problem just leaving it the way it is and looking at it in a way that might help bring it up a little bit for the, I don't care if we say in the next 3 years or whatever, So I think we all feel the same. I hate sounding redundant here, but I am. I'm good at it. So.
Okay.
Mayor, can I just make a quick comment?
Absolutely.
After I just dawned on me what Tracy was saying. As I read this law, what is required is that there's two things as I'm looking at the law, that we hold a public hearing. If there's going to be any type of increase in compensation for the statutory officers, we hold a public hearing and we publish notice. We've done both of those things. That's all that's required. This ordinance actually doesn't have to be passed. It just has to be, we've done the two things that are required. And so is that what you were saying, Tracy? So yeah, I agree. So you can actually just not take action on this. We've done the two things that are required, and then it just has to be a part of your final budget. In other words, you couldn't do anything more than what is posted here, but you can do less.
Okay. And are you saying that we do not have to pass the resolution then?
It's
Or the
never
ordinance,
gonna hurt.
excuse me?
It doesn't hurt if you want to pass it, but it's not required. The two requirements are the public hearing and that it's published, that we publish notice, and we've done both of those things.
Okay, which we can handle at our, once
Correct.
we vote on our budget.
So again, this is kind of like the super official way of doing it, but we've already met the obligations of what are required by the new law tonight.
Okay, all right. Did you have something more to say?
No, how far I could bend this.
Okay. Okay, does anybody else want to comment on this?
Well, I expressed my view in the other meeting, which is also public. So, but I'll say, you know, when we make, I'll say it again, I guess, when we make policy decisions, I'm thinking of the future, not just whoever sits in whatever seat.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, creating a fair compensation, stipend, whatever you want to call it. I'm not comfortable with the cost of living because I don't think we hire on here, and it's not an income that I would say I'm dependent on to live on. You know, it's a city employee once told me, well, you guys on the council, you're the biggest volunteers in the city. And so I cost of living increases I see as an employee type thing, you know, along the lines of a full-time employee. I'm comfortable either way, as I said, but looking forward to the future, I think we need to be in line with other cities that are comparable, whether it's now or next year. I think when we upped the mayor's pay a couple years ago, it hadn't been done for a long time, and the mayor was probably making half of minimum wage with the amount of time she put in. So staying on top of it, like I said, not in favor of a annual cost of living, but maybe a biannual review. Every other year we review the salaries and go from there.
Okay, I appreciate you guys' focus here on this, and once again, I stated in the previous meeting too that this isn't about the pay, it's about the service to the citizens, and certainly all of us are willing to do whatever it takes to kind of make our city move forward in the proper manner and to our best ability, and that's how I feel about this office as well, regardless of the amount of hours it takes and how, ironically, as this city has grown, this position has grown as well, and it is pretty much a full-time job, even though we look at it as a part-time job. In the comparison to the other cities, you know, I appreciate the compensation that was made before, and I'm looking at this more for down the road as well. I think we need to make the adjustment on both sides so that once again we attract folks that come from a mix of life to be able to represent us all within this city. I'm on the fence for myself. I'm struggle with it as well. In all the years I've been on here, it's been tough. I mean, you hate to sit up here and vote, and you do not want to vote yourself a raise. So I struggle because I want to make sure that we have good people going forward as well. You guys are all great. You all deserve it. And I just think that you need to look at this and the intent, what the staff was doing, which was to do a market analysis and really kind of find out where the medium is. So by not doing anything, you're going to be in that same situation going forward for any future council members as well. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Clint, so if we were to pass this ordinance, it's really just like a policy guidance, you know, because we can always just decide differently. So I'd actually be willing, just as a policy matter, to actually make a motion to approve ordinance 2415 with some changes. The hope maybe would recognize some of the comments that have been made. To Councilman Roberts' suggestion to remove the council and the mayor from the cost of living adjustment and the merit pay, to separate them from the regular employees, and to remove the city council pay and to keep the rest of the document as it's currently stated. So it would be to remove the city council pay and everything else would be the same, because the cost of living and merit is still it's zeroed out on this anyway. So the only thing that the motion is to remove the city council pay from the proposed compensation increases and keeping the mayor's potential increase to where it's at. And that's to speak to Councilmember Smith Edmondson's comments about finding Orem, South Jordan, West Valley. We've already done that for the mayor. So we kind of know where we're at. So we wouldn't need to engage in any additional analysis. We could, as a policy matter, make that decision, and that would be my motion.
Second it.
Okay. Do I need to do a roll call vote on this, right? Well, or, okay.
And discussion if there's any.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll entertain the motion in the second. Is there
Public hearing too?
I think, didn't we already close the public hearing?
No.
Yeah, just close the
Okay,
public
and then
hearing.
close the public hearing.
Okay. Okay, so this is only on item number A of our public hearing. It has been acknowledged that we close the public hearing and adopt resolution 20, hang on, I got the wrong page here. Ordinance 2415 as proposed, minusing the city council pay and not the mayor's, huh?
Correct.
Okay.
Discuss.
It is that I will open for discussion. Continue.
So I'd propose an amendment to that motion or a substitute motion. I don't know what you want to call it. I guess a question to Clint or Tracy. There's a Senate bill that tells us we need to do this in a hearing. And I think I've already got the answer from Tracy, but could we do the council and mayor on a separate page, Appendix B maybe, but in the same hearing?
Yes.
Because I would love to pass this. You know, I'm looking at these other titles of these important city employees that do a lot, and it's almost like they shouldn't be on the same page. So I'd make a amendment to that motion that we just separate the mayor and council, and we can have that discussion of those increases prior to adopting the budget. Is that fair?
Would you accept that amendment, Councilmember Watson?
Yeah, I'm just thinking here. I don't think anyone on the dais has any question whether they're going to be accept this. Again, this is just a policy consideration, right? This can always be changed. And so even at the budget, we would be able to change our minds, right?
Yeah, you have to publicly notice. It couldn't go beyond. It would be up to what is here. You couldn't approve an increase above that for anybody on that list, whether it were employees or mayor or council. This is kind of like the up to this point is what you're approving.
Okay.
You could down to zero, whatever you choose.
But I don't necessarily think that I disagree with separating them. I think that they can be two. I just don't know if how that works. How would you substitute them? So you would just create the motion here by creating an Appendix B orally?
The way I understood it, it would everything would be the same as what you made in your motion, with the change being that mayor and council are in one appendix and then employees are in the other appendix. And I just needed to get clarification on which one was which, who would be Appendix A and who would be Appendix B.
Well, I'm fine with that motion. Yeah, I mean,
So just for clarity, we just need to know, do you want mayor and council as A or B? Okay,
Probably A.
okay,
yeah.
A and B would be mayor and council, and then appendix B, or sorry, A, and then appendix B would be all the other employees on the list. Yeah, that's fine. Is that clear for you, Kim?
but
Okay.
are you still voting for it on one motion now?
Yeah, it's all just your exact same motion, just basically breaking the exhibit into two exhibits.
So let's, I mean,
Not a separate ordinance.
On the ordinance.
that's what I'm meaning. I mean,
It's not separate.
it's
It's
not
not a
separate.
separate
So
ordinance.
I guess my question is, how can you segregate them if it's just one ordinance? Because let's say Tyson doesn't want to vote for the mayor's increase, just hypothetically. He would vote no on the ordinance anyway. Because A and B are a part of the same ordinance.
So my thought was, we don't need to pass this ordinance according to the Senate bill, the law.
No.
But I would like to pass the ordinance for the city employees. That's where I sit. Maybe it doesn't need to be, just strike both of those. Just have them separate. I think they should be.
Yeah, you could do that too.
I'd formally like to pass the ordinance without the mayor and council on it. So that's
the substitute motion.
So that would be your substitute then, is
Yeah, I
to
guess
strike
substitute motion
strike
then,
the
sure.
first two items from ordinance 2415.
So it would be, strike that in the appendix and all references in the ordinance itself to mayor and council.
Correct.
Do that.
But if you are talking about not the city council to zero, but the mayor an increase, but you're striking them.
I don't know about striking, but moving. Because I think we still discuss it before we pass the budget.
But we haven't approved it. You can't go up. Doesn't there need to be the amount to not go above that you mentioned?
Well, it's just simply what we've noticed here. Again, none of this is actually required to be adopted. We've met our obligation under the law.
My original motion wasn't necessarily to speak to anything to do with anything other than striking the city council's pay. If you're voting no on my motion, then it doesn't mean you don't want to move forward in the budget for all those cost of living and merits. You just would say no, you don't want to do it. I'm making the motion to raise the mayor's salary and not raise the city council's salary. That's my motion.
And I guess sorry, Mayor, if I may.
Because I guess I don't understand how you could separate them if these are all the same individuals, right? This is what's required in the ordinance. These are all the same statutory employees, these ones that are like elected officials or otherwise that are required to be in the notice. I think you have to take them as all or nothing. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't know how you could separate them.
You can,
if you've noticed it, that they're all the same.
Well, we're not changing the information.
Yeah, you just.
Right, you do it just the way you did.
Yep.
So they all have to be noticed in this schedule, these positions. Then when you make a motion for how you want to adopt, honestly, the budget, you would say, okay, based on the schedule we saw, we agree with all these, we don't agree with this one, so our motion is to adopt the ordinance minus this, which is exactly what you did.
Right, okay.
Whether we put them on a Schedule A, a Schedule B, it is still all part of the same presentation. So.
I guess my thought behind removing them and talking about it later is we've been talking about this for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. That's as much information as we've had to discuss it, to think about it. But we knew that we want to increase the cost of living and the merit, increases for the employees. So if we can separate them and if that's legal, then I'd like to do that.
Yeah, I think you can do that.
Madam Mayor.
Any further discussion?
I do have one other thing to just muddy the waters even further. But I'm a math person, so I did do some calculation on just those 3 cities that I mentioned earlier. And the average on the city council would be 121 and 1 cent, as opposed to the 164 and 7 cents that is listed on this, which is lower, but still allowing for, some type of market adjustment. So I just wanted to bring that, again, muddying, but if we're doing the discussion, which we are, then it's best to have all the information now instead of waiting 2 weeks and to do the same discussion that we're doing now.
Good point. So it boils down to you want to make the market adjustment for mayor and council. We know we all want to take care of our employees. That's not the discussion. So it boils down to, do you make your market adjustment or not?
And then just to that point, what I'm saying is that none of this is actually required. So yes, you can break them up.
I was just trying to get an idea of the policy for this city. That's why I made the motion. Councilman Thomas seconded it. There's been a substitution.
Yeah.
And I'm saying I want it to be voted on as it is.
So you want to reject the substitution?
Yeah.
Well, if the substitute didn't have a second, it dies, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
What was that again? The motion again?
The substitute motion or the
No,
original?
the original motion is simply just to remove the city council's increase in pay and leave everything else the same. Everything else is the same. The mayor's increase, all the cost of living merit for all the other employees are city council, mayor, cost of living and merit at zero. The only thing that's different is we're giving the mayor a market raise and we're not giving the city council a raise. That was my motion.
What's your basis on the mayor?
And I still second it.
Like I mentioned, Councilmember Smith Edmondson said, I think rightly, that Orem, South Jordan, these are kind of the cities that we look at, and I think there's a bigger discrepancy between where you're at on those than where we're at, and so I just don't feel it's necessary for the city council to get a raise. But I do think that if we can get the mayor up to closer to where those other cities are, I think that's more feasible for a market survey. And candidly, you don't vote. So if there's a way for us to get the market to where the mayor's at and you just run the meeting and we can help you out in that way, then I'm happy to do that because the mayor should be compensated in a market way. So that's why.
Okay, so we have a motion to adopt the ordinance striking the council compensation, leaving it at zero. And do we have a second on that still from Mr. Thomas?
For the third time.
Third time, very good, keep track. Okay, so it's been moved in second. I'll do a roll call vote on this. Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Bloxham?
Yes.
Councilmember Morris?
I want to just mention one other thing. I gotta be careful. We're spoiled, this group, elected officials. One of the reasons why we're not here every day, all day, is because the city is well run. And quite honestly, they don't need us to be here telling them what to do. The cities are exist to provide services to our residents, and we don't do that. It's these people on this list and those that work for them that do that. And so I feel totally comfortable still in that I think we're fine on the council level. The mayor's office is a different office. Yeah, she doesn't vote, or the mayor's office doesn't vote. But she, to Bettina's point, she's always available. She needs to always be available. And I keep saying she because the mayor's she, but she or he is the office is a different office. We have a role to play, and it's a very important role. and it's a policy role, and it's, yeah, the budget, we understand that. The mayor needs to be more available, and we need people that to be compensated for that. And so I feel comfortable with the motion, and I vote aye.
Aye. Councilmember Thomas?
I can vote no. If I say it, then I'm done. I just have one comment. I agree with everybody totally, and I'm going to vote in a positive form, but I don't want to have it included in there that I can't come in here and tell Alex what to do. Okay. I mean, I've been looking forward for that for 30 years. And so, but other than that, aye.
Okay, thank you. That was pretty grueling, but that's the purpose of a public hearing. Let's go on to item number B of our public hearing, which is regarding the acceptance of the Layton City budget. Yeah. Yeah, okay, so
Okay, members
Tracy?
of the council, on May 2nd, we set a public hearing for tonight, and we noticed that public hearing related to our budget for fiscal year 2024-2025. So our obligation tonight is to hold a public hearing and allow the public to voice their opinions over the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. No action will be taken during this public hearing or after regarding the budget. That will be at the next meeting after we've taken public hearing. And you can either choose after public hearing tonight to continue the public hearing until our next meeting on June 20th, or you can close this public hearing tonight if there's no reason to leave it open. Just a few brief items to review. The general fund budget in the 2024-2025 budget is just over 46 million. The citywide budget, which includes utility funds, is just over 138 million. We've discussed market and merit and cost of living adjustments in the previous public hearing. 2.4 million in capital equipment, 13.8 million in capital projects, which includes utilities. It's anticipated that sales tax may be slightly lower in the upcoming year, and so that's been adjusted in the budget. And some of the major projects include an emergency communications dispatch center, which is mostly funded by intergovernmental funding, not particularly just the city. West Hillfield Road, Public Works Shop, potential land purchase, a Sugar Street realignment, potential land purchase, and a pretty long list of utility projects, which Mr. Jackson covered a number of those for the sewer fund anyway tonight. A couple of graphics here that just divide out how the different revenues come into the city for 2025. You can see that property tax only makes up 8.6%. There's not a property tax increase proposed in the budget. And sales tax making up just under 25% of that. Under the charges for services category, most of that revenue is related to utilities. That's why it makes up such a large percentage. On the expenditure side, 40% of the expenditures are towards compensation, as was mentioned generously by many council members tonight. It's the employees of the city that make the city run, and the city does compensate the employees at market rates, which is nice so that we can have good employees. 29% for operational expenses. Many times we think of that as salt, sand, asphalt, things like that we need in order to run the city. And then 25% for capital projects. Some of the things that we need to discuss tonight before the public hearing are changes to the budget that was presented on May 2nd. One of those changes is to reduce the amount of funding that's going to be used from the general fund in order to fund the dispatch building, and use funds from the Emergency Medical Services Fund, which is an enterprise fund, otherwise maybe known as the ambulance fund, right? use $500,000 from that fund towards the dispatch building. As we analyze that more, it makes sense that a lot of the calls that the dispatch center takes are medical related calls for an ambulance. An additional change proposed, $32,800 to cover kind of a glitch in what Utah retirement system is doing. They've caused so that the employee would have to pay part of their retirement cost. And as a city, as management of the city, we didn't necessarily support that. And so we're proposing to you that a stipend be put in place to help those employees if they're with us at the end of the year. Also, to add to the tentative budget, it's proposed $129,477 for an emergency manager position. As was mentioned in a previous meeting, that position or those duties were filled by the assistant city manager, management services director, some other individuals in the past, and a number of those have retired and moved on. And so it would be good to put this position in the fire department with funding coming from emergency medical services. Also, in addition to the budget would be $8,548 for a crossing guard at Angel and Weaver. And the last addition to the budget that wasn't included in the tentative budget relates to the 8.2% utility rate increase for the sewer fund, as Mr. Jackson mentioned previously in his presentation. And so an 8.2% increase in the sewer rate would generate an estimated $915,000 in the 2024-2025 budget. And so at this time, Mayor, I would turn it back to you to open a public hearing and accept public comment.
Okay, council, can I get a motion to open the public hearing and at this time?
I move that we open a public hearing to discuss the budget for 24-25.
Thank you very much. Okay, if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the budget, you're more than welcome, or anyone else. Council, if any of you wish to deliberate more on this, you're welcome to as well.
Just had a question, Tracy. Just you might not have the budget right there, but in the water fund, talks about use and appropriation of net assets, and there's a budgeted amount, and then there's an estimated amount. And the budgeted amount was 3.9 million, and the estimated amount was 23 million. Is that is that just a typo, or is that? And I can hand it to you if you'd like. I just was wanting some clarification about what that was, because it was well beyond what was budgeted. It was 167 right here.
Oh, yeah. That I would say that it's a typo.
Okay.
Good catch.
No, I'm happy that it's a typo, because I was like, I didn't know what that number was. So, okay. Yeah, no worries. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something, because I was racking my brain trying to figure out what that could have included.
So that would be an additional change to the budget document that we would want to point out next meeting, would be that it's in the current year, we're not estimated to use that much money, right?
Okay, is there any other questions?
Yeah, just one.
Sure.
The crossing guard, that's under the police budget?
Yeah. Yep. And police patrol.
Yeah, thanks.
Any others? Okay, council, you have two options as pointed out earlier. We can go ahead and keep the public hearing open until our next scheduled meeting regarding the budget and close it at that time and then vote on the budget. Or you're welcome to go ahead and close the public hearing now, and then at the next regularly scheduled meeting, when we go to adopt the budget, we can just deal with the budget at that time. So knowing that the ball's in your court, I'll allow you to make the motion as you see fit.
Is there an advantage of either? I mean, I don't understand why. I mean, we'd leave it open, fine,
I mean, people can comment.
Right.
I always lean that way.
Yeah.
But people can comment anyway,
Yeah.
I think, if they call in, want to talk to Tracy or someone, but
Right, 'cause-
the advantage to leaving it open for the public would be that officially it will be in the public hearing section of the next agenda, and they would have an opportunity to stand and speak to it. The disadvantage for a council might be that you get confronted with a question that you would want to research more, whereas we've noticed the public hearing and the public has had an opportunity to come tonight and had many people come and commented, then you have a time frame to be able to consider those comments before we have to legally adopt the budget. The problem with accepting comment, and that's why I've always presented that this meeting and then have a 2-week period for us to take into account any consideration or changes that you would like to make. If for some odd reason, a number of people showed up on the 20th because we leave it open and they make comments that cause you concern, then we run up against a deadline of not being able to adopt the budget before the end of the month. And then we would have to hold possibly a special meeting in order to do that. And if at that time you also determined to leave the public hearing open so that perhaps those people could get it kind of escalates into a potential issue, in my opinion. But it's completely up to you. But that is the reasoning, at least my reasoning, behind holding this public hearing so that there is time for you to consider any comments. Given that there were no comments, then I guess it's just up to you whether you'd like to leave it open till next time or not.
So I guess I should know, because this is the third time I've done it, but we don't take public comment. Generally, we don't take public comment on the night when we approve the budget.
We've left it open
Right.
some years, and some years we've closed it. So considering that we didn't have any public comments tonight, then it probably wouldn't matter if you left it open. I think the general public would just need to understand that it's hard for you as a council to take public comment the night that you intend to adopt the budget. And for that reason, we've held the meeting tonight, because we want to be more transparent and give people an opportunity to make a comment and then have you actually consider it. There are other entities that don't do that. They hold a public hearing the night they're going to adopt the budget. In my opinion, that doesn't say much for wanting to accept public comment. So that's why we do it the way we do.
You said it's difficult for us, but I would say it's difficult for you and your staff. So, if there were proposed changes on the night of so I'd be in favor of closing the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Was that a motion or just a comment? Councilmember
Make a
Roberts?
motion, we close the public hearing.
For the second time, I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing for the Layton City budget fiscal year 2024-2025.
Conversation.
I can open it up for discussion.
Thank you. And the only reason, and I think we've done both since I've been here. To your first thing you said before you made the motion, I agreed with that. The idea of leaving it open so that the residents, whenever they find out there's a public hearing and there's a budget that's being passed, I want someone that show up when we're actually adopting it to be able to make a comment. And I think we would be responsive to that. And we may not make the decision that they want, but I would hope that we would have a chance to let them speak. So I don't know.
And be on the record.
Yeah, and be on the record, and we could be responsive to that. If we close it tonight, then it's kind of it's baked. So I don't know. It's a tough one.
Well, it
We've
has.
done both.
I'll just make one quick comment here, and that is the fact that we've certainly put the schedule out there. We've let people notice what our intent is and the timeline. But I think the biggest takeaway tonight is the fact that certainly any questions that people have regarding our budget, that they're more than welcome to call into the city over the next 2 weeks and talk to the staff. And Tracy is more than willing to entertain any of the questions or concerns they have as well. So, but I'll turn it back over to you for discussion. Do you have a comment as well?
I just have a clarifying question. We close the public hearing tonight. At our next meeting, where does the adoption of the budget go on the agenda? Does it still go under public hearing because we have no longer had a public hearing? So at that moment, it's a consent item, and if people want to comment during citizen comment, they can still make their comments during that time, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? That's a maybe.
No, yeah,
I'm
I just think we should leave it open. I just think it's this is what we do, and we represent the people, and if they have a comment, and I mean, we might not agree, and we might not. We may have an answer. I mean, we've got pretty smart people in the room that can help answer questions, and everyone's busy, and I don't know how people get their information, and if they even know we're doing this, and so it gives them one more opportunity to at least be part of the process. Except Tom here,
Okay,
he knows.
I think all of you have had a chance now to weigh in on the discussion. I'm going to go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. No, I don't have to do a roll call on this, right? Because we're not adopting a budget. Yeah. So the proposal is to go ahead and leave the public. No, wait, excuse me. What we're voting on right now is to close the public hearing. And that's it. So, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All oppose. Now I'm going to do a roll call vote. Starting out with Councilmember Thomas.
No.
Okay.
What do you say?
I'm doing a roll call now.
I didn't know if no is allowable. Or if it is, okay, no.
Okay. Councilmember Smith Edmonton.
Yes.
Councilmember Morris.
No.
Councilmember Bloxham.
No.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Kim, what's our count?
No.
Okay. The motion fails to close the public hearing at this time. Therefore, we will keep the public hearing open regarding the Layton City budget for fiscal year 2024-2025 until our next scheduled meeting. So, knowing that that's the case, that's the last item on our published agenda. However, I have asked the staff if they could give us an update on some of the comments that we had received from various citizens in the past couple of council meetings. So, Alex, are we still going to have? Do you have?
Yeah,
the
Steve's
update on
still there.
those,
I thought
please?
Steve had left, but they're
Yeah.
engineering related questions. Well, and what I think maybe while Steve's coming up, I mentioned this to the mayor, that when citizens come before here and raise issues, the staff always takes information and contacts them. So all these people have been contacted, but we wanted to provide that so you were aware of it as well, and maybe others who heard the discussion and were curious. But we always reach out to the individual people and communicate with them, and so they're aware of it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm back. Right, I think I had 3 items that Alex asked me to address. So the first one was the 150 West and the complaints about the road condition. We are currently in the design of replacing that water line. So the water line has been a problem. It's been breaking. We obviously don't want to throw good money after bad and put a road on top of a water line that's just going to break and ruin the road. So we have that in design right now. We have a contractor who's working on another water line project in the city, and we're anticipating that if they have some time to fit that in the schedule, we might be able to squeak that in and then get the road paved as well this year. So we have talked at length with the gentleman that came in, and he was going to talk to his neighbor. But that one is on the list. It was on the list prior, and we were trying to get to it. Obviously, some contractors have more time than others, and so we're working towards that. The light at Hill Boulevard and Gordon Avenue. There is I believe the youth got hit by a car there. Anyway, we have a light. It's a 40-foot pole with the luminaire similar to the one that is on Hillfield Road that we worked with UDOT in conjunction with. So the base for that was poured this week. We need to let that base cure. They're running the conduit and everything like that. So we're ready to stand that light up, and then we're going to need to make the power connections. But that is in the process. It's taking a little bit longer than we wanted, but it should be a great addition to that intersection until sometime when the warrant. We did look at a warrant to see if something else needed to be done there, and there's not enough pedestrian crossing there to warrant something more than just trying to improve the lighting in that intersection. Is that what you were going to ask? Okay. We do have that in our transportation master plan thing as well to look at future improvements there, but just for now, that's what we're planning is that light. And then the other one was 2125 East Gordon. We've received complaints on that one before. We've looked at that. We actually collected some traffic data last week. We're collecting more traffic data next week as well. The preliminary numbers do not appear to warrant a signal there yet. It is on the master plan in the future to have a signal installed there once the traffic meets one of the warrants that we have. And there's about 10 different warrant studies that we can do, but we're still processing the warrant. So I can't tell you that it doesn't meet warrant yet because we need to go through that whole process, but the preliminary traffic numbers don't show that there is enough vehicular volume there for a signal. What we do know is that there is quite a bit of speeding going on at the bottom of the hill. Not quite as much at the kind of top of the hill, even though it is higher than we would like, but down at the bottom towards the Andy Adams trailhead entrance, there's quite a bit of that. And I think it's kind of a function of the grade of the road and people not having any conflicts there. So we've reached out to our police department, our traffic, safety people, and they're working with us to kind of address that. And so I know there's a lot of complaints about the sight distance on that corner. It is a tighter sight distance than what most people are comfortable with, but it does meet all of the standards. It does meet all of the requirements that we have. That's one of the reasons we try to not design to the minimum, because this is the type of situation that you get into. There are grades on that road that make it a little bit more challenging, but we do encourage people to, when they stop at the stop sign, then to inch forward until they can see far enough to make sure that that is the actual traffic code, if you will. If you read the state code, it says you stop at the stop bar and then you move into the intersection until you can see. And so that's what we encourage people to do at that intersection. But we will continue to monitor it, and it is on our list with the master transportation plan as well. So.
Well, and on that same intersection too, there is another way out if you can actually go to the north, correct?
Yeah,
Which would
you
be
can
much safer.
exit out 2125 to Oak Ridge Drive and take alternate routes either east or west on that road. Maybe if you want to go down to Emerald or you want to go up towards Cherry.
Okay.
So.
Well, thank you for that update. I know it's good for everyone to know that we do take their comments serious, and that we appreciate the staff addressing it. But then at the same time, as a council, we appreciate you informing us as well. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. In fact, if any of you wanted, I drove by Gordon today actually and noticed the pouring is still formed up there on the corner for the light. Yeah, it's still in place. So I mean, people can see where you're putting the light. Is what I'm trying to say.
I believe it was poured on Tuesday, so it's still. I don't even know if they've stripped the forms off it yet. So
they hadn't earlier today, but
yeah.
Madam, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Still traffic, different area.
Okay.
The Main Street, Hillfield, rollabouts,
through turns. Yes.
Knuckle turns.
Yeah, it's been 10 years. I don't know. It's Is there, my question is there does UDOT, in conjunction with the city, evaluate later on? Is this working? What's the?
I'll have to follow up and see if they've done an evaluation recently, but I know immediately after they did before counts and after counts, and it was a substantial increase in the amount of cars that actually are moving through the intersection now, and the delays went down substantially as well. And then I believe there was a follow-up a couple years afterwards. And to be honest, I know people think that it's a little crazy, but it's an innovative design, and it has solved not all of the traffic problems, but a lot of the traffic problems we were seeing there. If you recall, there were, half-mile traffic jams in that area. And so the delays have gone down substantially, and we're moving more cars through that intersection than we ever have before.
That's good to hear, because one of the thoughts is that, well, yeah, it's you have less traffic, or it seems to be moving because there's less traffic, because people are just avoiding it because they don't know how to do it.
No, it's not.
It's not the case.
The volumes of cars going through that intersection are substantially more than what were there before we actually.
I'd appreciate if you have that information. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll follow up with UDOT and see if I don't know if they have anything, but we could certainly.
And it's us and Draper. Are there any other?
There is one in Draper as well. I think I'll be honest. We've learned some things over the years. There's people a lot smarter than me, and so we try and
not very many.
We try and avoid creating. Thank you for that, but there's plenty out there. We try and avoid creating those same situations over and over again, if that makes sense. So, for example, 2700 West, we just built that new interchange. We intentionally moved our intersections further away to make sure that those types of things don't keep occurring over and over again. So I think you'll see less of those, but there are some places where that is kind of the situation that makes the most sense, and without impacting all of the surrounding areas. So
I think one of the comments regarding that intersection, though, that we did hear was the striping and the notification that when you're in that center lane, that whether you're going straight or are you automatically in to do the through U-turns. So I think that when you do
and I can give you an update on that as well. We did talk to the UDOT group that is over all of that striping, and they've done an evaluation, and it is fairly well striped. It's just not. Again, it's an innovative design, and so they looked at it and said, could we add something there or do something more? And they felt like all of the striping meets all of the MUTCD standards, and adding more striping or more signs would probably create more confusion. And so that's kind of where it's at right now. We'll continue to monitor and look at the flow of that area, but unfortunately, as you come under the bridge westbound, we've asked if we could move people over a full lane to create what you're asking, which is keep people out of that left turn lane. But the crossing traffic from the eastbound vehicles would be too close to those westbound turners as well. So
what about before you actually get to Main Street? Could they paint maybe an arrow on which one is the one that's the straight through drive? Because I think that's where the confusion comes in. Because people are over here in the second left lane. Once they cross over Main Street, they realize, oh, I don't want to turn. I want to get over. And then that's where you get the confusion.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they can maybe paint some arrows on just before you get to Main Street.
We can talk to them, but I know that their concern is that we don't want people confused and making left turns at that intersection, because that was what was happening immediately when we opened it, was people were still trying to make those turns. So happy to.
Well, and that's why I'm saying at least do the straight through arrow. That's the issue.
All of the lanes are straight through. It's after the intersection that then you either have to do the through turn or not. But I'm happy to chat with them. I'll reach back out on counts and just make that suggestion.
Something's weird there because not yesterday, day before, I'm in the lane, and next thing I know, I got two cars that could have hit my mirrors. And I don't know why, but all of a sudden I'm like, somebody's not in the right place.
Somebody's drifting.
Well, it wasn't drifting. No, they
I
were,
think it's
they
just
were in a
confusing.
lane, and all of a sudden, I don't know if the lane changed. I was gonna go back and see what the
Okay.
deal was, but I thought I was just gonna get hit by 2 cars. So there's something odd there. I don't know what it
Okay,
is.
we'll talk to them. We'll bring it up and see if
Thank
they
you.
have any more suggestions. So.
Is this an open transportation forum?
We're covering it all tonight.
We're not talking about tractors.
Close. No, I've had a question, and maybe it's a discussion to have, maybe with the whole council, but now we have a new highway on the west side of our city, and I know the time's gonna come when I-15 has a major backup, and everybody's gonna be trying to get from I-15 to 177. And I'm wondering about truck traffic on our streets and what is approved. Is Antelope Drive our only east-west from end to end truck traffic?
I believe that's the only technically approved one, but we do have a truck route map, and we can revisit that if you'd like and kind of have that discussion.
So my thought is, will 2700 West, and maybe that's a discussion for us to have, will we approve or allow trucks on that route? So maybe for future discussion.
Yeah, we can look at that.
Okay. Thank you, you guys. That's some good unfinished business to take care of tonight. So I'm willing to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Sorry.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay. All in favor? Need a second? Yeah, I don't, but go ahead. All right. Okay. Wrap the gavel. We've never wrapped it. Say motion adjourned or meeting adjourned.
Motion adjourned. Meeting adjourned.
Hallelujah.